Being said in such a way by wordless Summer, Lonely Snow did not give any rebuttals. He only lowered his head and left, chasing after Sherfong. Waving slowly squinted his eyes. When he thought about Sherfong equipped in a body of trash equipment, he could not understand what methods Sherfong had used to cause Lonely Snow to follow him. Lonely Snow had even given up on the clearing Deathly Forest. "Boss, let's ignore that foolish Lonely Snow. At worst, we'll start looking for people again. There are plenty of level 2 players now," Battle to the End said in disdain as he watched Lonely Snow. Waving slowly nodded his head. Lonely Snow's leaving did not cause any loss to their party. As for Sherfong creating a party to dive into the Deathly Forest, not to mention clearing the dungeon, nobody would go in with a level 1 player. In front of the Deathly Forest's entrance, Sherfong and Blackie continuously shouted to recruit people. "Open party for Deathly Forest, no rigid requirements, okay as long as you're a veteran gamer." "Two waiting for 4. Sherfong shouted. When everyone heard of it, many level 2 players had run over. It was because Sherfeng's requirements were very low. Many small parties would choose people based on equipment quality. They needed a few pieces of common equipment to pass. However, who would have that many pieces of common equipment in the early periods of the game? Party me, party me. I'm already a level 2 cleric. Party me. I'm a level 2 shield warrior. I also have a piece of level 1 common plate armor arm guard. In just a moment, Sherfong had invited 4 people. These 4 people were quite happy originally. There were over 10 people currently present, but only they were chosen. However, after they saw the party leader, Sherfeng's level, they left the party in rage one after another. Fuck, it's just a noob coming to die in the Deathly Forest at level 1. If you want to enter the dungeon, enter it by yourself. I won't accompany you. No wonder there are no requirements for the party. Want us to give you a ride? Not a chance. The 4 people were extremely enraged, and the voices they made were practically roars. Every player at the Deathly Forest could hear it. Hee, even a level 1 player dares boast about entering the Deathly Forest. He just wants to tag along for experience and equipment. Lucky for me I didn't go over. There are all sorts of birds in a large forest. Who would be foolish enough to enter the dungeon with a level 1 noob? Isn't that just looking to be abused? One after another, the level 2 players laughed at Sherfong for overestimating himself and for his foolishness. Get lost if you don't wish to party up. We're not begging you all to come. Blackie became enraged after listening to them. Sherfeng's techniques had long since convinced him, yet these people were calling Sherfong a noob. Can a noob kill a level 2 rare elite when he was level 2? Can a noob kill a level 5 chieftain when he was level 0? These people were just a group of snobs and idiots. Crap, my knowledge has been widened. A level 1 noob party can be awesome. I really want to see how you two gather a full party. The cleric that just left the party said with a cold smile. At this moment, Lonely Snow ran over. When he saw Sherfong, he hurriedly said, "Brother expert, give me an invite. I want to enter the Deathly Forest together with you guys. I have 2 pieces of common plate armor equipment on me, defense is 24. Alright. Sherfong immediately sent an invitation. Blackie never imagined that Lonely Snow would actually leave his original party and come to them. He suddenly had a good impression of Lonely Snow. Blackie clapped Lonely Snow's shoulders, heartily laughing, "You have good eyes. Don't worry, following Brother Fong definitely won't be a mistake." Nonsense, nonsense. Lonely Snow was still slightly worried within his heart. The grinding spot Sherfong had simply pointed him to had allowed him to rise to level 2 quickly. However, Sherfong himself hadn't even reached level 2, and he was still wearing very poor equipment. Lonely Snow just couldn't understand how it could be so. The spectating players by the side all became dumbfounded. There was actually someone who would enter the dungeon with a level 1 noob. This person had good equipment at that. The brand new plate armor and boots on Lonely Snow must definitely be common equipment and not trash equipment. Although Lonely Snow had joined the party, not a single player had joined them after Sherfong had recruited for over 10 minutes. With just 3 of them alone, it was impossible to enter and clear the dungeon. At this moment, Waving slowly but surely brought a group of people. Hee, brother expert still hasn't partied anybody? We've already invited another 3 strong members. All of them have at least 2 or 3 pieces of level 1 common equipment. The cleric, Endless Summer Night, said to Shifeng in ridicule. Waving slowly only sent a glance towards Shifeng, then moved his sight towards Lonely Snow, saying, "You won't have a future if you follow him around. Before we enter the dungeon, you could still consider it over properly. I guarantee that you definitely won't suffer a loss." Afterward, Waving slowly shifted his gaze towards Blackie. Previously, all his attention had been on Shifeng, having ignored Blackie. Now that he took a closer look, Blackie's clothing looked brand new. Blackie was even holding a blackwood staff. His equipment should be quite good, and he was also level 2, so his techniques should be good as well. You're not bad as well. Why don't you join our party? You should know that we are an elite party. It's not something average players could compare to. If we're together, leveling, grinding, and dungeon diving will be easy. Waving slowly looked at Blackie with a smile. Get lost. Trying to poach me over just based on your little party? Blackie scolded as he pointed his blackwood staff at Waving slowly. At the same time, he had selected to display the halo effect of the bronze equipment, saying, "It's just 2 to 3 pieces of common equipment. I have 3 bronze equipment and 2 common equipment." Waving slowly and the others were shocked. They never thought Blackie was that powerful. He actually possessed 3 pieces of bronze equipment. During this period of time, a person having 2 to 3 pieces of common equipment was considered an expert. As for having a piece of bronze equipment, that person would definitely be an expert. Every guild would fight over for that person. However, the Blackie before them actually had 3 pieces of bronze equipment. Waving slowly's party also became surprised. When they saw the halo effect of the bronze equipment, their eyes had nearly popped out of their sockets. No wonder Shifeng behaved that boldly. Shifeng had nothing to fear because he had grabbed an expert's favor. Meanwhile, Lonely Snow, who stood beside Blackie, was slack-jawed. He looked at Blackie in disbelief. Lonely Snow had originally thought of Shifeng as a rarely seen expert. He had never imagined that Blackie was the true great expert. Fellow brother, if you party up with such a noob and enter the dungeon, it would also be a burden on you. Not to mention failing to clear the dungeon, you might even have to die once. How about you come with us? All pieces of mage equipment from the dungeon are free for you to choose from. Although Waving slowly was enraged for being given such a slap, if he could rope over Blackie, then the chances for clearing the dungeon would become a lot greater. I agree with your views. Joining a group of noobs such as yourselves really will be a burden to me, Blackie chuckled. You, a Waving slowly's face turned beet red, furiously saying, then let's see who clears the deathly forest first. Finishing his piece, Waving slowly spun around and left. He did not believe that a party with a noob in it could clear the deathly forest. Humph, he's just a powerful damage dealer entering the dungeon. Does he really think he could clear it? Wordless Summer jealously murmured. Right. We are all veteran gamers. We are definitely stronger in dungeon diving than they are. The shield warrior curled his lips. After Waving slowly's party left, the number of people applying for Shifeng's party had also suddenly increased. Such an effect was mainly caused by the equipment that Blackie wore. At this period, bronze equipment was definitely the proof of an expert. Even if there was a noob as the party leader, an expert with 3 pieces of bronze equipment could be considered as strong as 2 people. The advantage of having such an expert was definitely greater than an average party. However, Shifeng was no longer inviting people at random this time. There was a definite requirement. Such an action had caused the 4 players who had left Shifeng's party previously to regret immensely. How could they have acted on impulse? Now, Shifeng wouldn't give them a chance even if they wished to join. Just as Shifeng was fervently recruiting party members. At the southwest part of the Deathly Forest dungeon's entrance, a great disturbance suddenly appeared. Many players had run over, one after another, every one of them having excited expressions. It can't be. Meeting in such a place? Blackie's two eyes stared straight ahead. Shifeng was also shocked. They could even meet such an important figure in a small location like Red Leaf Town. It was just unimaginable. Could it be that Red Leaf Town was a place that had crouching tigers and hidden dragons, only Shifeng had never discovered it before? As more players started going there, Shifeng's area turned leisurely. Brother Feng, I'm not seeing things right? Or am I dreaming right now? Blackie rubbed his eyes as he asked with uncertainty. Shifeng was speechless. With a bitter smile, he looked towards the three-man party that caused this disturbance. The newcomer was not just anybody, she was Blackie's idol, goddess Gentle Snow. Gentle Snow's body was covered in a suit of gorgeous silver-colored plate armor, revealing her fine and curvaceous body. Adding to her angelic beauty and snow-cold temperament, even women's hearts would be moved by her, as well as a large group of men. Even Shifeng couldn't help but admit that Gentle Snow was the most perfect woman he had seen before, be it regarding appearances, body, or temperament. There was not a single female celebrity who could match up to her. As for the two people on each side of Gentle Snow, Shifeng was very familiar with them as well. He had seen them before on big news channels. They were all famous experts in God's domain. One of them was also an absolute beauty named Zhao Yueru. If Gentle Snow could be said to possess a perfect body and appearance, then Zhao Yueru possessed a devilishly enticing body and appearance. Every one of her movements was like a temptation that could influence a person's heart. Adding on the fiery red robe that she wore, her body radiated a wildlike charm. Such bewildering charms had caused many men wanting to go over and assault her. If you really did such a thing, however, then congratulations. You've just earned a one-way ticket directly to hell. This was because words such as big breasts, no brains and as delicate as a flower were not applicable to Zhao Yueru. In God's domain, she had another nickname of the Flame Witch. The reason why she held this title was that of the mountain of corpses she had piled up using these male players. There had once been a guild leader of a large guild that had tried assaulting Zhao Yueru. As a result, the guild that had over 100,000 players became no more. Zhao Yueru even hunted their guild leader. The incident only came to an end when that guild leader was killed back to level 0. From then on, the title of Flame Witch had been cast on Zhao Yueru. Compared to the Snow Goddess and Flame Witch, the priestess by their side could only be considered normal. She was not overly beautiful, her techniques were not bad, and she was also within the top 100 rankings of Starmoon Kingdom's priest leaderboard. Two absolute beauties plus a great beauty, such a combination had created brilliant scenery in the deathly forest. Hundreds of players surrounded them, trying to become acquainted with the three women. Unfortunately, the three beauties did not even look at them. Sister Yueru, these people are really scary. How about we return and level up? The timid Xiaoyuer whispered. Hee Yuer, don't be afraid. With Gentle Snow here, even if you give these hateful, vulgar men 10 times the courage, they wouldn't dare come over here, Zhao Yueru said with a smile, proudly sticking out her chest. Gentle Snow only nodded her head in reply. Regarding these salivating, vulgar men, she did not even place them in her eyes. Although the drops from elite monsters are not bad, the drop rate for skill books is higher at the Deathly Forest. If we don't grind for a few more skill books, we will level up very slowly in the future, Gentle Snow quietly said. Zhao Yueru nodded her head in agreement. Although the three of them had killed quite many elite monsters, the number of skill books that dropped was very little. Until now, the three of them had yet to learn even 3 skills. It was really affecting their strength utilization and grinding efficiency. Effective party for Deathly Forest, looking for a healer and MT3 waiting for 3. After taking a few looks, Shifeng continued shouting. Although Gentle Snow and Zhao Yueru were indeed attractive, Shifeng was no longer a child. He had seen plenty of beauties, especially after he became Shadow's captain. Many beauties would willingly throw themselves at Shifeng. As for Gentle Snow and Zhao Yueru, it was good enough to just look at them for pleasure. Such beauties were not something Shifeng could have thoughts about. His main goal right now was to get down to business. However, Shifeng's shouting did not yield any replies. Not a single player had even glanced at him. All of them were staring and salivating at Gentle Snow's group of 3. Even Blackie was no exception. His eyes had nearly popped out of their sockets from staring. Shifeng sighed, helplessly shaking his head, and continued shouting and recruiting people. Crap, what is this fool blabbering about? Do you really think anybody would commit suicide together with you in the dungeon? Quickly scram, you level 1 noob. Stop distracting me from looking at beauties. Quite a few players started to express their discontentment. 2 high-quality beauties had already shown up, yet instead of trying to get closer to them, Shifeng was actually making noise here. What would you do if those beauties were scared off? That person is interesting. He can actually attract the hostility of so many people. Did he do something immoral before? Xiao Yue revealed a crescent moon-like smile, giggling as she pointed at Shifeng. Zhao Yueru aimed her eyes over as well. She felt nothing special from Shifeng. He was even dressed in tattered clothing. Zhao Yueru felt that Shifeng was just trying to seek attention from the crowd. She suddenly said in disdain, "He is definitely doing so to grab our attention. Let's not bother with him and quickly party up 3 people to dive the dungeon." Regarding the number of men who had tried to attract their attention, there were just too many of them. Zhao Yueru had seen all kinds of methods these men had used before, and Shifeng's method was not a rare sight at all, but instead outdated. Gentle Snow did not voice out any opinions, only taking a look at Shifeng. She felt an odd feeling coming from Shifeng. This was the spirit of a hidden sword. Gentle Snow was especially concerned about the fire poker hanging around Shifeng's waist. Gentle Snow, what happened to you? Zhao Yueru curiously looked at Gentle Snow. She did not understand why Gentle Snow would keep staring at the extremely ordinary Shifeng. It's nothing. Maybe it's just my imagination. We should hurry up and recruit some people to dive the dungeon. Gentle Snow shook her head, no longer looking at the fire poker at Shifeng's waist. Originally, Shifeng's party already had trouble recruiting for people. However, because of Zhao Yueru's single sentence, nobody else had paid attention to Shifeng's party, even if his party had an expert present. Shifeng expressed his helplessness when seeing the hundreds of players queuing up in front of Zhao Yueru. The 3 women's arrival had really bad timing. Brother Foam, why don't we go over there as well? Blackie shamelessly suggested. Scram! What do you take me for? Shifeng rolled his eyes at Blackie. This fellow was just too shameless, forgetting friendship after finding love. Instead, Lonely Snow was the better one. He was a truly honest man. In the beginning, Lonely Snow had only taken a few glances but stopped after giving out a few praises. He had even helped Shifeng in recruiting people by his side. Blackie did not dare to speak again after being scolded by Shifeng. He could only silently look on in envy at those players in the queue. Over 10 minutes later, Shifeng still had not recruited a single person. Similarly, Gentle Snow's party had also not recruited a single person. However, in Shifeng's case, it was because nobody had come to join his party. Whereas for Gentle Snow's party, it was because the players that wanted to join did not match up to their specifications. One party was in heaven, while the other was on earth. Shifeng had no more choices. He could not just continue dragging on in such a way, his time was precious. He could only make exceptions in recruiting. Efficient party for Deathly Forest, we have an expert leading the party, clear in 1 try, no limit to levels, looking for healers and damage dealers, 3 waiting for 3. However, Shifeng's words had caused many players to send over looks of disdain. Even if you were trying to attract attention, you should have a lower line. Currently, there had already been tens of level 2 players who had died out of the dungeon. Every one of them had said the Deathly Forest was impossible to clear. On the other hand, Shifeng said his party had no level limits. Then wasn't he trying to say that he only needed 1 person to clear the Deathly Forest? Was this possible? However, Shifeng's lower line had still attracted some players' attention. Within a few moments, a group of level 1 players had come running over to join. Tens of level 1 players came running over. The area in front of Shifeng's party had also started becoming lively. This person is really something. He is so desperate to enter the dungeon that he would even want level 1 noobs. Did he not know that there has already been a level 2 elite party that had returned after dying? Who cares about him? A noob is a noob after all. We won't be able to understand their thoughts. The long queue of level 2 players started laughing one after another at Shifeng's actions. They all wanted to watch Shifeng become a joke. Those guys are really interesting. Even I don't have much confidence in clearing the Deathly Forest, yet they actually want to clear it with a group of level 1 players. Zhao Yueru's lips curled up slightly, revealing an exuberant smile as she looked in Shifeng's direction. Her voice carried a hint of ridicule and disdain. Gentle Snow also sent a glance towards Shifeng from a distance. Shifeng's temperament was both calm and confident. He did not become angry from being laughed at. Every one of his movements was very mature, not much different from the experts in God's domain she had seen before. However, she did not understand from where Shifeng's confidence came. Deathly Forest was Red Leaf Town's first dungeon, and it was also everyone's first time being in touch with a dungeon in God's domain. Their difficulties were an unknown. Even the elite parties of guilds would carefully choose their members before entering the dungeon. On the other hand, Shifeng did not care in the slightest, as if just gathering 6 players was good enough. Maybe I'm just overthinking things. He's just a level 1 player, so how could he clear the Deathly Forest? Gentle Snow caressed her elegant hair, her heart no longer thinking about Shifeng's odd actions. She looked at her hand, at the player information displayed on it: Level 2 Summoner, Magic Attack 28, HP 150, Defense 8, Movement Speed 4. Fail. Next. Afterward, another Cursemancer stepped forward. The person tensely sent his own attributes to the snow goddess, Gentle Snow. On the other side, Shifeng as well was looking at player data. Although he did not have a lower line, he did have a bottom line. The equipment and levels of these level 1 players were much worse than the level 2 players that Gentle Snow's party were recruiting. However, they were still players. As long as they did not simply add their 8 free attribute points early on, the chance of clearing the Deathly Forest with a 6-man party was very high. As for those shield warriors and guardian knights who solely added strength or weapons job but did not add agility, all of them were rejected. Big brother, please party me. Although I am just a level 1 guardian knight, I have a piece of level 0 common equipment. Also, all 8 of my attribute points are still available. I can completely add them based on your requirements. A youth named Kola pleaded, his eyes filled with expectations. Shifeng was slightly surprised. A guardian knight that did not add any attribute points could actually reach level 1. It was a masterpiece. It had to be known that guardian knights had very low attack, making the killing of monsters difficult. Normally, they would party up to kill monsters. To increase grinding efficiency, they would add a few points of strength. Otherwise, leveling up would be too slow. Guardian Knight Kola? Kola. Kola. When Shifeng looked at Kola's face, and also his tall and muscular body, he felt that it was somewhat familiar. Suddenly, he entered into deep thought. His memory seemed to have such a person in it. That's right. It's Tyrant Bear. Shifeng managed to remember it. Tyrant Bear's name was Kola. Tyrant Bear was the core MT of the first-rate guild, Brilliant Stars. During the early periods of God's domain, Tyrant Bear was constantly unsuccessful. He was even kicked out by third-rate guild, Heaven's Crown. After entering Brilliant Stars, Kola suddenly started to shine. He turned from being a normal party's MT into the core elite party's MT in the guild. He was ranked 15th on the Guardian Knight leaderboard of Starmoon Kingdom. Kola was known for both being able to attack and defend. Shifeng had never thought that the Tyrant Bear would run up to him on his own. Kola was such a shy person as well. It was totally different from the Tyrant Bear of 10 years later. Suddenly, Shifeng had an idea. Currently, the Tyrant Bear had yet to join Heaven's Crown, not to mention Brilliant Stars. If Shifeng could poach Kola over and turn Kola into his own MT, then wouldn't dungeon diving in the future be a lot easier? Big brother, I guarantee that I will absolutely listen to your commands when inside the dungeon. Please consider it over. Cola's tone carried hints of begging. Shifeng had nearly let loose a laugh. The great tyrant bear would actually speak in such whispered tones just for a position in the dungeon. However, Shifeng still held it in. The level 1 players that had come here all held hopes of getting lucky. The other parties that entered the Deathly Forest with level 2 players were already no good, not to mention level 1 players like them. If they could enter once into the Deathly Forest and fortunately obtain 1 or 2 pieces of equipment, then it would be of great help to their future development. At that time, entering into a large guild would become much easier. Alright, I can add you in. Shifeng's face turned grave as he said, however, you should know that bringing a level 1 noob like you into the Deathly Forest isn't easy. I can't just carry you through the Deathly Forest and then after you get equipment, you join some other elite parties. Wouldn't I just be striving for nothing? When Shifeng finished his speech, quite a few level 1 players had suddenly sent over looks of disdain. Weren't you also a level 1 noob? However, Shifeng did not care about what these people felt. He continued saying, I wish to form a stable party. Even if we need members, it would be with stability as the priority. If you wish to enter the dungeon, you need to be prepared for the long term. When I call you for dungeon diving, you must come. You cannot reject because you have some other matters. So, what will be your choice? When the other players heard Shifeng saying so, they suddenly turned quiet. Shifeng's intentions were very clear. If you wish to enter the party, then you won't be able to join other parties in the future, not to mention joining a guild. Everybody knew that entering a guild was the best method to increase your own strength quickly. Currently, they did not have the qualifications to join any of those guilds. So, they were here to try their luck, hoping to obtain 1 or 2 pieces of equipment. They might even be able to join those guilds afterward. So, how would they be able to give up their chances of entering a good guild just to enter a dungeon? Cola had also never imagined that Shifeng would give such a demand. However, it was still reasonable. You couldn't just expect other people to bring you up, then leave when you become strong. However, Shifeng lacked the persuasiveness when he said these words. At this moment, Blackie stood out and furiously said, just looking at you noobs, there is nobody that would want you down in the dungeon. And you still wish to join a guild in the future and enjoy their benefits? Are you thinking yourselves as experts, or are you taking us for idiots? Cola thought what Blackie, the expert, had said made sense. Even a level 2 expert with 3 pieces of bronze equipment was in this party, whereas Cola himself was just a novice noob. So, what right did he have to complain? Many thanks for Big Brother Expert's pointers. Little Brother will definitely strive to fulfill his own role. Cola continuously thanked Blackie. Blackie felt somewhat uneasy from being thanked and referred to as an expert by Cola. Blackie was just a complete imposter of an expert. However, being called such by someone made Blackie want to become an expert in God's domain even more. Blackie, beautifully done. Shifeng stretched out a thumbs up, quietly praising Blackie. Shifeng never imagined Blackie would tame the tyrant bear just like that. The tyrant bear had also called Blackie a big brother with a face full of respect. Blackie suddenly became confused. He did not understand what he had done that was worth being praised by Shifeng. However, he was still very happy. At least he had done something for Shifeng, although he didn't know what he had done exactly. Over 10 minutes later, Shifeng finally gathered 6 players. They could start dungeon diving now. Although Shifeng's party was gathered, the observing level 2 players had started laughing. They were not laughing because all the players Shifeng had invited were level 1. Instead, the jobs that were in the party were just too exotic. They couldn't help but laugh out loud. This noob really is something, and even I am starting to admire him. They're simply a suicide party. I really pity that expert for actually bringing along such an exotic player. The expert had even agreed to let him be the party's leader. The queued-up level 2 players started a debate, and there were quite a few players who were holding their stomachs while laughing loudly. He is just playing to the gallery. Zhao Yueru wrinkled her brows slightly. She turned her head away after taking a look at Shifeng, her heart slightly discomfort. Before, she would be the focus of everyone wherever she went. Today, however, everyone's attention was on an inconspicuous noob like Sherfong. Although everyone was jeering at him, he was still their focal point. Alright Yueru, we should hurry and gather enough people. If we waste any more time, we will be left behind by the frontline players. Although Gentle Snow felt that Sherfong seemed to be an expert regarding levels, methods of recruiting people and such, he was just too far from being referred to as an expert. As for the notion of inviting Sherfong into their guild, it was no longer present now. Their Ouroboros only accepted experts. Got it. Zhao Yueru turned towards the swordsman in front of her. With a little vengeance, she directly said, "Data's not bad, but too bad we don't want a swordsman." The swordsman suddenly became spiritless. How could he not see what Zhao Yueru meant? Subsequently, he turned his head and glared at the distant Sherfong, his eyes filled with hatred. Meanwhile, Sherfong, who knew nothing about what has happened, was currently activating the Deathly Forest. System, please select activation difficulty. System, normal, hard hell. Sherfong chose hell without hesitation. Suddenly, the transfer passage in front of the Deathly Forest changed. It changed from a silvery gray color to pitch black. At the same time, a flickering skull that had its mouth wide open could vaguely be seen. Meanwhile, the party members of Sherfeng's party all received a notification. System, you have chosen Hell mode of Deathly Forest. Death penalty increased by 100%. Suddenly, the faces of the members of the party turned deathly white. Death penalty increased by 100%, doesn't that mean if they died within the dungeon, they would lose 20% of their EXP? 1 or 2 hours of effort were required to make up for that EXP. Brother Feng, you chose the wrong one. Aren't we going down the normal dungeon? Blackie hurriedly walked over and whispered a reminder. Nothing's wrong. It's Hell mode. What would I be doing here if it isn't to dive Hell mode? Sherfong snapped. The drop rate for forging designs was extremely low. If it was normal mode, then Werewolf Felt's drop rate was only 1%, hard mode had 5% and hell mode had 30%. Although normal mode could be cleared without limit every day, who would have so much time to do so? Meanwhile, hard mode could only be cleared 5 times a day, and the probability of the forging design to drop was also not great. As for hell mode, it could only be cleared once a day, but it was also the one that had the most hopes of dropping it. Feng. Brother Feng, what are you saying? Hell mode of the Deathly Forest? Just look at our party. It is problematic to even clear normal mode, not to mention hell mode. Blackie panicked. Before, he had already seen several elite parties that had returned after dying. According to what these people had said, the monsters in the Deathly Forest were extremely strong. Their intelligence was extremely high as well. It was impossible to beat them without reaching level 4 or 5, so they had all left after giving up. If they dove into a hell mode dungeon now, with noobs like them, that would truly be going down into hell. Relax. If I weren't certain, even I wouldn't do it. Sherfong clapped Blackie's shoulders, saying confidently with a smile. Alright, let's go inside then. Sherfong led the party by entering first, followed by Blackie. Lonely Snow had also entered with a dazed head. He was prepared to tread this path to the very end. As for the remaining 3, they hesitated for quite some time. We better go in. The expert has already gone inside, so what do we, level 1 noobs, still have to be reluctant for? Moreover, we're entering the hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Even mentioning it would be a glory, Akola encouraged. The other 2 felt that it made sense and had also followed into the dungeon. Meanwhile, the area in front of Gentle Snow's party was completely silent. All of the level 2 players were stunned. They were not just shocked, but thunderstruck. A level 2 elite party couldn't even clear the normal mode, yet a party that mainly consisted of level 1 players had actually chosen the hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Snow, did I see wrong? That's hell mode, right? Zhao Yueru asked. Gentle Snow nodded her head. Her beautiful eyes kept staring at the flickering skull. Her expression turned extremely serious. That fellow must have abandoned himself to despair, entering hell mode after determining that he couldn't clear the normal mode. We'll see how they come out dead in a moment. Zhao Yueru laughed. We don't have that sort of time. Let's go, we've gathered enough people. Gentle Snow led the way towards the Deathly Forest dungeon. She selected normal mode for the difficulty of the dungeon. If there were no problems with normal mode, they would enter hard mode after. Within the dungeon of the Deathly Forest, there was a dark and gloomy forest. From time to time, there would be a chill wind blowing, causing a shiver down one's body. Aside from Shi Feng himself, every member of his party was tightly packed around the dungeon's entrance. They did not move even an inch for fear of attracting any monsters that would wipe their party. Brother Feng, why do I keep feeling a cold wind blowing by my back? Blackie asked in worry. Blackie, you need to bring out some temperament of an expert, only then will you have the possibility to become one. It is just hell mode. Aside from the monsters here having a little bit intelligence, their battle methods being a little bit complicated, and their attack, defense, and HP are a little bit higher, there isn't much else. Oh right, there is also a little bit more monsters here. After some thought, Shi Feng felt that he had nothing more to add. Suddenly, every member of the party sent looks of disdain towards Shi Feng. When diving a dungeon, even a small difference in attack and HP could cause a team wipe. As for Shi Feng, he had just simply explained. Moreover, what did he mean by just a little more intelligence? They had experience before the battles with monsters in God's domain. Regarding those monsters with slightly higher intelligence, even with the same attack and HP, their strength would still be increased by 1 or 2 folds. Alright, stop minding these little matters. I'll be explaining the strategy for this dungeon in a moment, so you guys better listen carefully. If you don't follow through, then your lives will become forfeit. Shi Feng waved his hands, ready to start explaining the strategy to conquer the dungeon. Suddenly, a strong wind blew from the dark and gloomy forest, causing the trees to sway madly. Ow! 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 After the howling wind came a furious roar that resounded throughout the entire deathly forest. Countless birds were scared, flying off into the sky. Blackie and the others were stunned by such an imposing aura. They were just youths around the age of 20. They had never experienced any great hardships, not to mention being tempered through life-or-death situations. It was their first time facing such a lung-piercing roar. Compared to hearing the traditional roar of a tiger in the forest, this roar was much more shocking to the human heart. This thing is what we should pay attention to. Shi Feng calmly said at this moment. The largest difference between hell mode and hard mode was this roar. Although it did not have a specific name to it, the players in Shi Feng's previous life had dubbed it as Hell's Roar. Shi Feng's words confused the other members. Wasn't it just a roar? What was there to pay attention to? When Shi Feng looked at everyone's contemptuous expressions, he couldn't help but gravely say, "Listen well you all. Hell's Roar is not as simple as what you think it is. In a moment, follow my demands while advancing. If anyone makes a mistake, don't blame me for immediately kicking you out of the party." Being lectured by Shi Feng in such a way, the other members all became serious. Nobody wished to leave the party. In a moment, Cola and I will walk in front. Lonely Snow, you walk in the middle and protect the oracle. Blackie, you and the summoner will walk at the back. Remember, you must not break formation regardless of any activities. Without my command, nobody is allowed to be the first to attack, do you all understand? Shi Feng explained the basics of formations once to the party. The reason Shi Feng had allowed the guardian knight, Cola, to walk in front was that he let Cola add all of his free ability points into endurance. His HP now reached 310 points. With this much HP, Cola could resist a little longer, sharing some of Shi Feng's burden. The dungeons in God's domain were unlike the dungeons in other virtual reality games. The degree of freedom within the dungeon was high, and the dungeons, themselves, were very large. There were even quite a few player parties who had wandered around in the dungeon for hours without even meeting a single boss. Although the deathly forest was not as large, it was still possible to become lost within the dark and gloomy forest. If someone were to become lost, Shifeng only wished to say hee hee. The scary part of the deathly forest was that players could become lost once they entered the forest. Eventually, the players would mysteriously die one after another. In Shifeng's previous life, there were countless players who had entered the forest and died over and over again in such a way without even meeting the shadow of a monster. If they had good luck and met a monster, then the result was a party wipe. Only after many experts of guilds had done it, did everyone finally understand the dreadfulness of the deathly forest. They had acknowledged that it was a terrifying dungeon that was impossible to clear without reaching level 5. When Shadow Guild reached level 5, they had organized hundreds of players to scout out the paths in the deathly forest. They had paid over hundreds of lives to finally have a clear understanding of the deathly forest's map. The entire deathly forest had 36 paths. However, only 3 of them led to the first boss, Willy. These 3 paths were paved with the lives of many players. 2 of these 3 paths were extremely dangerous. Without sufficient strength, death would be the only result. There was only one path that had very few monsters. Under Shifeng's lead, everyone walked into the forest. The moment they entered the forest, everyone discovered that there were too many pathways through the forest. They did not know which one was the right path. However, Shifeng had chosen one without hesitation. Everyone else closely followed him while being cautious of their surroundings. After walking for about 5 minutes, they met their first monster. Suddenly, everybody started to become tense. Eli. Don't act on impulse. Listen to my commands. Shifeng loudly shouted. In front of them was only a level 2 elite monster, a night rabbit. However, due to the dungeon strengthening, its attack, defense, and HP were all greatly increased. Its HP was a whopping 700 points. Cola, you lure the monster over. Oracle, pay attention to healing. Everyone else, don't start the attack without my command. Shifeng quickly gave out orders. The guardian knight, Cola, gulped down a mouthful of saliva. He carefully walked towards the night rabbit's attack range. Everyone else was nervous to the extreme. Although this was only a level 2 elite, they were currently in the hell mode of a dungeon. However, everyone's nervousness was for naught. The moment the night rabbit with a person's height saw Cola, it immediately dashed over. Cola had very successfully lured the night rabbit over. Moreover, he did not panic when he lured it. He retreated while using his shield to block the night rabbit's attacks. However, even though every attack landed on the shield, the damage was still terrifying. Just a single hit dealt 42 damage. By the time Cola returned to the front of the party, his HP had already dropped by a third. The Oracle, whose name was Drowsy Sloth, had good awareness. He had given out healing the moment Cola entered his casting range. However, every heal could only add 24 HP to Cola. It was completely not enough to stop Cola's HP from falling. Brother Feng, are we still not attacking? Blackie was slightly nervous. At this moment, Cola's remaining HP did not even reach 1/3 of its total. Bringing an Oracle into a dungeon was just a complete mistake. Amongst the healer jobs, Oracles had the weakest healing abilities. However, since Shifeng had chosen so, Blackie could only acknowledge it. Now that their MT was close to death, it would be unacceptable if they still did not attack. Hold on. Shifeng resolutely said. Time passed bit by bit. Cola continuously used his shield to block the claw attacks of the night rabbit, whereas his HP continuously decreased. Cola only had 20% HP remaining, yet Shifeng had yet to give out the command to attack. Just when everyone thought that Shifeng wanted to give up on Cola, a flying arrow pierced through the forest, shooting directly for the party's Oracle, Drowsy Sloth. Lonely Snow had not reacted at all as Drowsy Sloth was struck directly on his chest. A very great damage of -123 points appeared. At this moment, Shifeng shouted, Sloth, use life payment. Use the damage you received to heal Cola. Blackie, hold back the night rabbit to let Cola recover. Lonely, come with me. Everyone else attacks the night rabbit. Oracles were indeed the weakest regarding healing. However, Oracles had high HP, they would not be easily one-shot. Also, oracles had two skills when they first start out. One was life prayer, while the other was life payment. Life payment could turn the damage received by the user into a heal to be used on other players. In the early periods of the game, healers did not possess many skills or equipment. In regards to such a situation, oracles had a greater advantage over other healers when entering the deathly forest. It was the reason why Shifeng had given up on choosing a priest over an oracle. After finishing his piece, Shifeng rushed into the forest. "Do you think I will let you run away?" Shifeng coldly said as he looked at the dark shadow running through the forest. "Wind blade!" Shifeng turned into a phantom, chasing directly forward. The reason why Shifeng did not let anyone attack the night rabbit was to use cola as bait. Shifeng wanted to lure out the dark hand hiding behind the scenes. Although the night rabbit looked terrifying, an elite party could face up to 2 or 3 of them at once without any problems. However, in Shifeng's previous life, the reason why even a level 5 elite party could be party-wiped was that of the dark shadow in front of Shifeng. This dark shadow used the night rabbit as bait, luring players into attacking it. The dark shadow, on the other hand, would ambush the healers from behind. As the night rabbit was occupying everyone else, there was no way to save the healer. In the end, everyone died. Inside the deathly forest, if players did not deal with this fellow, the result would be a party wipe. With the increased movement speed from Wind Blade, Shifeng quickly caught up to the dark shadow. Shifeng waved out 3 sword slashes, sealing the dark shadow's path of advance. The black shadow knew that it could not escape. It immediately turned around, unsheathing a pair of knives to block Shifeng's attack.
Zang! Zang! Zang!
With the abyssal blade, Shifeng's strength was frighteningly high. His attacks caused the dark shadow to take 3 steps back, and each step it retreated would be followed by the damage that was over -10. In the end, the dark shadow revealed its figure under the moonlight. Night Ranger Special Elite. Level 2. HP 1458/1500. Seeing the Night Ranger being repelled, Shifeng immediately used Abyssal Bind without giving him a chance. 9 pitch-black chains appeared to bind the Night Ranger, preventing him from moving for 3 seconds, and his defense reduced by 100%. Thundering Flash. Chop. Damages of -81, -98, -119, -124 appeared. When the 2 skills landed, a frightening amount of damage appeared, taking away a quarter of the Night Ranger's HP. No matter how capable the Night Ranger was, it could not break free from the binding of the 9 chains. He could only silently take a beating for 3 whole seconds. Shifeng was unrestrained as he sent out sword slash after sword slash, piercing through the vital point on the Night Ranger's chest. By the time the Night Ranger broke free from the bindings, his remaining HP did not exceed 700 points.
Wretched human!
The Night Ranger was enraged. He brandished his twin blades like a gale, engulfing Shifeng. At this moment, Lonely Snow finally caught up. A charge from him had caused the Night Ranger to enter a fainted state, at the same time breaking the Night Ranger's gale-like blade. Shifeng took the chance to slash at the Night Ranger's neck. Lonely Snow also brandished his large axe at the Night Ranger. By the time the Night Ranger had awoken, he only had a remnant of his HP left. The Night Ranger abruptly hacked his twin blades towards Lonely Snow, sending him flying backward and dealing 64 damage. The Night Ranger turned his head to stare at Shifeng, once more brandishing his twin blades and slashing horizontally towards Shifeng's neck.
Zang!
Shifeng used parry with his sword. Without giving the Night Ranger any chances to retaliate, Shifeng lifted up the Ranger and tossed him back. Then, Shifeng followed up with a couple of sword strikes, finishing off the Night Ranger. Shifeng conveniently picked up the 2 items that dropped, then immediately ran towards Cola's location to provide help. Laying by the side, Lonely Snow became dumbfounded after seeing Shifeng's agile skills. His heart filled with shock, Lonely Snow had even forgotten to follow Shifeng to support. There was such a way even to kill monsters? By the time Shifeng returned to the party, the elite Night Rabbit only had 1/3 of its HP remaining. Everyone had coordinated properly. Cola tanked in the front alone, while the others vigorously dealt damage. However, to control aggro, Blackie did not madly deal damage. Instead, he used Evil Whip to pin down the Night Rabbit, giving Cola some breathing space. Cola's performance was also very good. He steadily tanked the monster, and he also had good control over aggro. Cola was not at the level of a novice, but there was still a long road ahead before he became an expert. Cola, don't always try to block with your shield. It isn't a must to block an attack like the other virtual reality games. You can also dodge to avoid an attack. That way, you could reduce the stress on the healer. For everyone else, focus your attacks on the target. Don't just randomly attack, aim your attacks at the wild rabbit's claws or other weak points. That way, you can reduce a lot of burden on the MT. Sherfong did not directly go up to help Cola, but instead, he taught everyone how to battle against monsters. If everyone battled while regarding God's domain as a traditional game, the results would be disastrous. This was because the healing given out was usually far from being able to keep up with the damage received. Some parties would bring an extra healer. However, this would result in the damage being insufficient. The result was still a party wipe. Players only slowly got used to the combat style in God's domain several months after the game opened. The players then would no longer be as cute and simple as they were now. Sherfong wanted to cultivate everyone to build a foundation for his future workshop. So naturally, he needed to let these people learn the combat styles of God's domain earlier. Everyone thought Sherfong was also a noob, so they held slight dissatisfaction within their hearts. The expert did not say anything, so why was a noob like him giving out commands? However, Sherfeng's words made sense, so they still consciously did as Sherfong said. Cola had also started to change his battle style. He was no longer using his shield to block the attacks rigidly. Instead, he retreated a step back when the wild rabbit launched its attack, taking the chance to avoid it. Although Cola still needed to use his shield to block most of the time, it had still greatly reduced the burden on the healer. Such a change allowed killing the Night Rabbit to become even easier. The few level 1 noobs were also slightly surprised. There was some change in their opinions towards Sherfong. Sherfong was not as unbearable as they had imagined him to be. Sherfong only smiled at this situation. He did not mind their thoughts at all. Sherfong only felt that Cola was quite good after seeing his performance. Although Cola was a first-rate expert 10 years later, he currently was still far from that point. If it were an expert MT, they would not retreat, but choose to dodge the attack without even moving. Such a decision was because if the MT moved, the monster would move as well. This situation would cause trouble for long-range damage dealers, which would result in the loss of a lot of damage. However, such a technique required a bounty of experience in battle and a body with dexterous reactions. Cola still needed a lot of training. The elite Night Rabbit fell within a moment. It dropped a skill book for Berserkers, Whirlwind Slash. It also dropped 3 coppers. Everyone could not help but be amazed by the drop rate of Hell Mode. A skill book dropped just after they killed an elite monster. If they killed over 10 elite monsters, then wouldn't they be able to obtain over 10 skill books? It should be known that skill books were extremely rare, and even a common skill could sell for 1 silver. Odd. Sherfong naturally knew of their thoughts. However, not even Hell Mode had that high of a drop rate. It was only 3 to 4 times that of Hard Mode. Afterward, Sherfong passed Whirlwind Slash to the stupefied Lonely Snow. Then he passed a level 1 bronze defensive plate armor to Cola. The Night Ranger dropped the armor. With these items, the party's strength slightly increased. Cola's mouth could not close after receiving the defensive plate armor. He hurriedly thanked Sherfong for it. With this bronze plate armor, not only had Cola's defense increased by 14 points, but his HP had also become 350 points. Aside from Sherfong and Blackie, everyone else on the scene was filled with envy. Bronze equipment was the identification of an expert. Outside the dungeon, it was impossible to obtain a piece of bronze equipment, even if you begged for it. And this piece of equipment was obtained by Sherfong alone. Yet Sherfong gave it to Cola without hesitation. Everyone's opinion toward Sherfong changed quite a bit. They felt such a party leader was not bad at all. Shifeng was unlike the other party leaders who would prioritize themselves when equipment dropped. As for bronze equipment, forget giving it away to a temporary party member, they would definitely keep it for themselves. Afterward, everyone followed Shifeng as they advanced. Although the dark and gloomy forest was scary, everyone was no longer as nervous as they were before going through a stimulating fight. From time to time, 1 or 2 patrolling elite night rabbits would appear in front of them, and they would also respond to it quickly. When there were 2 night rabbits, Cola would tank one of them, while Shifeng and Lonely Snow would rush over and kill the other. As for the ranged players, they would prioritize attacking the night rabbit in front of Shifeng. The night rabbit's 700 HP would be gone quickly under the fierce bombardment. Afterward, the party supported Cola and finished off the other night rabbit. Within moments, 2 night rabbits were no more. With this process, a skill book, Restore, meant for healers also dropped. The skill had a 2-second cast time. When learned by oracles, the skill could instantly restore 37 HP. It was far better than Life Prayer. It did not share the same cooldown as Life Prayer, so the two could be used in coordination to negate the damage caused by the elite night rabbits completely. Drowsy Sloth continuously thanked Shifeng and the other party members for letting him learn the skill book. Restore was an extremely important skill for conquering dungeons. If it were to be sold outside, it could go for at least 2 or 3 silver coins. Don't mind it. Skill books are meant to be used. Let's continue onward. Shifeng smiled as he answered. Aside from AoE attack skill books, healer class skill books were the most expensive and rare. However, the Deathly Forest was a dungeon meant to let players build up their foundation in God's domain. In Hell mode, the drop rate for basic healing skills was very high. In Shifeng's previous life, he had obtained 4 healing skill books just after entering Hell mode of the Deathly Forest once. It was not considered valuable. After more than an hour, Shifeng's party arrived at a flat grassland. They had finally met the first boss of the dungeon. Willy Chieftain rank. Level 3. HP 6000. Willy was a ferocious night rabbit. Its height was as tall as 2 people, and sharp steel claws decorated its paws. These claws loved creating a feast of fresh blood, and those caught by it would be ripped to shreds, turned into a river of blood. It was unknown how many players had died a gruesome death under these claws. A short distance away from Willy, there were 7 elite night rabbits on guard. These 7 rabbits were very close to each other. As long as one of them was attacked, the other wild rabbits would rush over as well. There was also a great possibility of attracting the boss. Even if it were Shifeng, he would not be able to face off against 7 night rabbits, not to mention including a boss. However, if they did not finish off the 7 night rabbits, there was no way for them to attack the boss. Brother Feng, what should we do now? This place has too many night rabbits. The game isn't giving us any chances. Blackie was very anxious. Although the boss was in front of them, the system had dealt them such a hand. This difficulty was just too great. No wonder it was a hell mode dungeon. It was impossible to pass through without absolute strength. The system's setting also angered everyone. Who could fend off 7 elite night rabbits? Even a level 5 guardian knight would not be able to do it. You all wait for me behind that rock. Cola, get ready to receive the monster. Everyone else is not allowed to attack without my command. Shifeng pointed towards a large rock nearby. Shifeng naturally knew that there were 7 elite night rabbits here. Everyone abided by Shifeng's command without question. All the monsters they had killed on the way here relied on Shifeng's commands for success. They killed quite a lot of night rabbits, and everyone had obtained 1 or 2 pieces of bronze equipment. Blackie even had 5 pieces of bronze equipment. Their party's strength has definitely surpassed the other elite parties. The credit for such an achievement belonged to Shifeng's commands. As for Shifeng, he had run to a location that was 40 yards away from the 7 night rabbits. He quietly hid within the bushes, observing the night rabbits' every movement. Everyone understood that Shifeng was trying to lure monsters. However, the 7 night rabbits were too close to each other. Shifeng was a swordsman. He did not possess any long-ranged attacking capabilities, so how could he lure monsters? Time passed bit by bit. Everyone was extremely anxious. If Shifeng accidentally failed, then it would be a party wipe. However, Shifeng was calm. He moved not an inch as he watched the faraway night rabbits. At this moment, a cool breeze blew past. A dead leaf on the trees was sent flying over. Seeing the dead leaf hovering down towards the night rabbit, Shifeng picked up a small stone beside him. Gently, he tossed the stone over. The direction the stone flew to was towards the night rabbit closest to the boss. We're finished. Everyone understood what kind of outcome this would be. It would definitely be a combination of one boss and 7 night rabbits rushing towards them, turning them into blood sacrifices. The moment the stone was about to hit the night rabbit, the dead leaf just happened to have blocked between the stone and the night rabbit. The stone struck the dead leaf, smashing it onto the night rabbit. The night rabbit abruptly turned to look at its surroundings, only discovering a leaf. However, how could a leaf hitting it be so painful? Subsequently, the night rabbit left its unit to observe the surroundings. It looked around aimlessly, not knowing what it was trying to find. It had unknowingly moved over 20 yards away from its unit, and it was still moving further and further away.
Too godly.
Lonely Snow could not help but exclaim. His eyes had nearly popped out of their sockets. Everyone else had dumbly nodded as well. What kind of accurate judgment and aim was required to hit the dead leaf while hitting the night rabbit and thereby confusing the night rabbit's hatred, causing it to look for its target blindly? Even calling it as an ultimate skill was not excessive. Was Shifeng really a noob? He couldn't be some gaming god here to make a fool of them, right? Summoner, the rest is up to you. Shifeng walked to the rock's location. He looked at the summoner, clapping the person's shoulders as he spoke, smiling. Hearing Shifeng's comment, the summoner, Gluttonous Mouse, suddenly panicked. He did not understand what Shifeng wanted him to do. If he had performed badly and was kicked from the party as a result, he would regret it until he died. It was hard to find a good party during this time, not to mention a party with an expert leading it. It was impossible to join such a party even if you begged. Relax, I won't let you do anything dangerous. You just have to summon out a flame sprite and follow my instructions. You don't have to do anything else, Shifeng said with a smile, trying to ease the nerves of Gluttonous Mouse a little. Currently, summoners were not strong, mainly due to the incapability of their skills. A summoner's method of attack mainly relied on their summoned creatures, whereas their normal attack was the low-damage magic bullet. However, a summoner with awesome skills could become a one-man army. It was especially true for summoners who could call out powerful elemental creatures. They could kill elite monsters as if they were just playing around. Party leader, rest assured, I'll definitely do it. Gluttonous Mouse loudly said, his tone filled with respect. He was like a student who had met his teacher. Everyone else, distance yourselves from that rock, 20 yards away from it would be the best. Pay attention not to lure the other monsters. Shifeng turned around and said to the other party members.
Yes, party leader.
The other party members loudly replied. Their current attitudes were completely different from before. Shifeng was slightly shocked by everyone's performance. Why was each and every one of them so obedient all of a sudden? However, Shifeng did not know that the single stone he threw just now had completely shocked every one of them. They were filled with admiration towards Shifeng's stone-throwing technique. Such skill and accuracy were definitely not something a normal person could do. Professional players might not even be able to do so. Worshipping the strong was a common sight within a game. These level 1 noobs were no exception. At this moment, the gaze everyone used to look at Shifeng was completely different. Before, they merely felt that Shifeng was a good commander. Now, however, Shifeng was a strong person they worshipped. They had faintly grown a sense of reverence for Shifeng. Standing to the side, Blackie clapped Lonely Snow's shoulders, proudly saying, "How is it? Following Brother Feng isn't bad, right?" Lonely Snow silently nodded his head, rejoicing for the decision he made to follow after Shifeng. Shifeng was definitely a beta tester expert. Without sufficient experience and practice, such techniques were impossible to accomplish. Only a beta tester could possibly do it. Ha ha ha.
What do you plan to do in the future?
Blackie suddenly asked. He started to hatch ideas towards Lonely Snow. Blackie wanted to poach Lonely Snow for their workshop, even though the workshop was still non-existent. There was a 100% chance for Cola to join them, but Lonely Snow still did not have any plans to move in such a direction. The future? Lonely Snow had never considered it before. He was but an average player. He did not have any big ambitions, only wanting to earn some cash from playing games. He said honestly, I have never considered it before. I see that your techniques are quite good. Why don't you join us for now? Blackie nonchalantly asked. Really? Lonely Snow had anxiety about his future after Blackie's question. He did not know where he wanted to go. If he could party with an expert, then it could not get any better. Of course. However, we still need to look at your future performance. We don't just simply accept people, Blackie proudly said, pretending to be an expert. Thank you, Brother Black. Lonely Snow happily responded. He never imagined his luck would be so great as to be noticed by an expert. Seeing Lonely Snow agree, Blackie released a sigh of relief. Currently, Blackie was just a fox pretending to be a tiger. He couldn't help out Shifeng much in God's domain, but he could still help out in regards to administration. There wasn't even a shadow of their workshop as of this moment. There was also the debt of 16,000 credits. The workshop's members consisted of only Shifeng and himself. It was definitely the poorest workshop in history. If this was found out by the others, they would definitely turn around and leave. Now, Blackie could only fake being an expert to lure people to join their workshop. At this moment, Shifeng was currently explaining the contents of the operation to the summoner. The operation was to let Gluttonous Mouse lure the remaining 6 night rabbits by controlling his flame sprite. Because the night rabbit that was closest to the boss was no more, luring the other night rabbits would not attract the boss. They could lure the monsters with ease. The flame sprite was extremely weak. Its HP was only a pitiful 15 points, and it would die in a single hit. However, its movement speed was extremely quick. Adding to its very small size, trying to hit it would be a difficult task. Start the operation. Mouse, remember to maintain a distance of 4 yards or above while circling around the rock, Shifeng reminded once more. Gluttonous Mouse nodded his head. Carefully, he controlled the flame sprite to lure the 6 night rabbits. When the sprite entered the 35-yard distance, the nearest elite night rabbit discovered the flame sprite. Suddenly, it turned its body around and rushed towards the flame sprite. The other night rabbits also came rushing along. Seeing the night rabbits taking the bait, Gluttonous Mouse immediately controlled the flame sprite and ran. The 6 night rabbits were in hot pursuit, but their speed could no match for the flame sprite. In a moment, the flame sprite had arrived beneath the large rock. It had lured the 6 night rabbits over and started circling around the large rock. On the other side, Cola had already aggroed the night rabbit that had left its unit. Cola interchanged between blocking and using his new skill, Divine Strike. With the effects of 2 pieces of bronze equipment, a single hit from Divine Strike had caused 26 damage. It was a lot higher compared to the 11 or 12 damage caused by a normal strike. Also, Divine Strike had the added effect of increasing hatred. It became a lot easier to hold aggro. The night rabbit was killed off within a short moment. It dropped 5 coppers. After this night rabbit was handled, only the 6 night rabbits that kept on circling around the large rock remained. I'll lure the night rabbits. Cola, pay attention to pull the monster. Shifeng picked up another small stone, throwing it at the night rabbit that ran at the rear. The night rabbit rubbed its cranium after being struck on it. The rabbit turned around, discovering Shifeng that had thrown the stone. The night rabbit suddenly became enraged. It madly hopped toward Shifeng with its powerful legs. As for the other night rabbits, they were still excitedly chasing after the flame sprite, failing to notice the disappearance of one of their companions.
Receive it.
Seeing the night rabbit was only 20 yards away from the party, Shifeng commanded. Kola rushed ahead, sending a divine strike towards the night rabbit's head. The night rabbit's target immediately changed, extending its claws towards Kola's cranium. However, Kola had reacted quickly by dodging his body sideways. After avoiding the attack, Kola continued by using punishment. The skill had once more strengthened the night rabbit's hatred to Kola.
Everyone focus fire.
Shifeng inwardly applauded after seeing Kola's performance. He had never imagined Kola's ability to learn would be this great. He had already found out about the night rabbit's attack patterns after going through slightly more than 10 battles. No wonder he was the core MT of a first-rate guild 10 years later. His potential was limitless. The night rabbit in front of Kola had fallen within 20 seconds. It had even dropped a skill book for swordsman, Double Chop. Shifeng immediately learned it without reservations. Double Chop action type. Requires sword. Level 1. Proficiency 0/300. Rapidly deals damage twice. Every slash of the sword deals 120% plus 15 damage, also increasing bleeding effect by 20%. Duration of 10 seconds. Stacks up to a maximum of 5 times. Cooldown 8 seconds. This skill book had greatly increased Shifeng's explosive power. As for the problem of getting used to the skill, it was non-existent for Shifeng. After playing for 10 years as a swordsman, the skills belonging to the job were deeply ingrained into Shifeng's bones. As long as Shifeng got a hold of these skills, he would be able to utilize them to their greatest potential. Shifeng had also lured the remaining 5 night rabbits over, one after another. The party had killed the rabbits one by one, and following the death of the final night rabbit, a golden glow appeared around Shifeng's body. He had risen to level 2. At the same time, the 5 night rabbits had contributed to the party a piece of bronze plate armor for guardian knights. The equipment increased Kola's HP to 390 points and his defense to 56. It had also increased Kola's ability to resist against the night rabbit chieftain, Willy. With the elites that were on guard all dead, only the boss, Willy, remained on the open field. At this moment, Willy was laying on the ground sleeping. It would scratch its back from time to time, completely unaware of its missing henchman. Everyone recover for now. I'll explain the method to raid Willy in a moment. Shifeng wanted everyone to ease up first. It would not be easy to face off against Willy. The fight would require a high degree of concentration because a single mistake would cause everyone to be buried together. Hearing Shifeng's command, everyone sat down to recuperate. They ate and drank to recover to their best state. Shifeng's finger waved and shook as he called up his attribute panel. He had recently reached level 2. Because of the Abyssal Blade, the free attribute points he obtained exceeded other players by 2 points. The choices he could make with his points were slightly more than the average player. In the initial period, it was sufficient for the agility of a swordsman to reach 20 points. However, Shifeng increased his to 30 points. There would be a fixed increase in the body's flexibility when agility reached 30 points. Subsequently, Shifeng added the remaining points into strength, making it easier for him to contend with the boss. Shifeng had on him 3 pieces of bronze equipment, a mysterious iron ring, and a magic weapon. Shifeng attributes had basically reached his own requirements. Character: Yifeng, human. Affiliated kingdom: Starmoon. Title: Might of 8,000. Job: swordsman. Level 2. HP: 520/520. Attack power: 88. Defense power: 39. Attack speed: 15. Movement speed: 13. Attributes: Strength 32, Agility 30, Endurance 24, Intelligence 13, Vitality 13. With such attributes, Shifeng had more confidence dealing with Willy. Seeing everyone recovered, Shifeng started explaining, Willy has 2 skills. One of them is Killing Feast. When used, Willy will ignore hatred and randomly attack the nearest players. Blackie and Lonely, you two have to pay attention to your positioning. The other skill is Death Claws. Cola, you have to distance yourself from the boss before this skill is used. Lonely Snow, pay attention to interrupt the boss. I'll remind you when the time comes. Another point to take note of, Willy is very smart, so don't keep on using the same attack pattern. Alright, that's it. If we're ready, then start the battle, Cola. Brother Feng, is there nothing else we have to pay attention to? Blackie walked up to Shifeng's side, whispering. This place was the hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Not everyone was an expert as well. However, Shifeng's explanation was so simple that it made them feel conquering this boss was very easy. However, there were so many elite parties which had died inside normal mode, so how could hell mode be so simple? Party leader, are there no details we need to pay attention to? Everyone was very worried. They all held anticipation in their gazes as they looked towards Shifeng, hoping that he would speak more about the finer details. They were noobs, so there were a lot of things they did not understand. In regards to an expert like Shifeng, the things he felt were common knowledge were definitely not common to noobs like them. Elites could not be compared to a boss. The other elite parties must have definitely died at the hands of the boss. Although their equipment was better than an elite party's, they were still level 1 noobs. They clearly knew their own worth. You guys worry too much. Relax. When the time comes, I'll tell you what you should do and when you should do it, so don't worry about it. Cola, start the fight and remember to dodge more often. A single healer will not be able to match up to the boss damage, Shifeng smiled. He felt his party members were quite interesting. They were much more serious about the details than he had thought. In his previous life, Shifeng had entered Hell Mode dungeons countless times as the captain of Shadow. There was also no lack of 100-man dungeons amongst those times. So, how could he not know how to guide a few noobs to beat a small boss? Cola had no choice but to go at it hard. Willy abruptly leaped up the moment Cola entered its detection range. Its mouth salivated when it saw Cola, and its 2 pairs of steel claws intertwined to produce sparks. Cola had clearly stimulated Willy's heart of massacre. It lifted its steel claws and hastily dashed towards Cola. Start casting heals. All damage dealers prepare to attack Willy's limbs. Shifeng commanded when he saw Willy's menacing appearance. Just when Shifeng finished speaking, Willy had arrived before of Cola. Before Cola could react, its sharp claws had fallen from the sky, slashing at Cola's neck. Pung! Cola instinctively used his shield to block the steel claws, forming 3 brilliant streaks of sparks. There were also 3 claw marks left on the shield. Due to the immense rushing force, Cola was forced to retreat 5 or 6 steps as he stabilized his body. Above his head, a damage of -103 appeared. Before Cola could even attack, Willy once again waved out its steel. This time, Cola was sent flying with his shield, and a damage of -105 points appeared. Only at this moment did the heal land on Cola, recovering 43 HP for him. It was a truly insignificant amount when compared to the damage Cola received. Everyone was shocked. The movement speed and damage of the boss was too horrifying. If Cola did not possess 2 pieces of bronze equipment, or if he did not block the attacks with his shield, he would have simply died from these 2 strikes. Lonely Snow, use charge on Willy. Blackie, use Evil Whip. Shifeng had long since expected such a situation. He quickly instructed Blackie to use a binding skill. Lonely Snow reacted by using a charge to block Willy's next attack and saved Cola's life. However, Lonely Snow's attack had only caused -11 damage to Willy. He became dumbfounded by it. He had added most of his attribute points into strength, and he even had 2 pieces of bronze equipment on him. Yet he had dealt such a small amount of damage. It should be known that the boss in front of him had 6,000 HP. Blackie also finished chanting from the side, sending out his evil whip. 5 streaks of pitch-black thorns suddenly constricted Willy's legs. Shifeng took the chance to circle around to Willy's rear. With the abyssal blade in hand, he used double chop on Willy's neck, causing -66 and -67 damage. His attack also caused a bleeding effect, causing Willy to lose 8 HP every second, lasting for 10 seconds. The high damage immediately caused Willy to switch its hatred to Shifeng. However, Shifeng did not give it any chance. With his 30 agility, Shifeng easily dodged away from the steel claws, appearing 5 yards away from Willy. Ow! 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 Willy furiously bellowed as it rushed at Shifeng. Ranged players start attacking. Cola, come over and hold Willy after you're done recovering. Shifeng systematically retreated while he dodged Willy's claws. However, the others watching Shifeng were shocked to their souls. This was because Willy's claws would graze by Shifeng's cranium every time it attacked, blowing his hair into a dance. Although everyone was shocked, they never stopped attacking. Magic attacks were sent out one after another, whereas Lonely Snow used Whirlwind Slash at Willy's rear. However, not one of those damages had exceeded -20 points. Willy's HP slowly decreased. When it was occasionally struck by Shifeng, its HP would drop by a segment. Willy's HP had fallen to 90% within a moment. Willy became enraged as it started a mad dance with its claws. It used Death Claws, greatly increasing its attack speed. Shifeng was nearly hit by it. Fortunately, however, he had used the Abyssal Blade to block the attack, only receiving -130 damage from it. At this moment, the Cola rushed up with his full HP. He used a Divine Strike on Willy's head, followed by a punishment. Willy's hatred only switched to Cola after a series of attacks. The switching of hatred had also interrupted Willy's Death Claws, returning Willy to its normal state. Seeing Willy change targets, Shifeng waved out a thundering flash. 3 streaks of thunder passed through Willy's body, dealing -92, -116, -137 damage. At the same time, giving Willy a damage amplification effect, it allowed others to deal 20% more damage to it. The fight with Willy became much easier. Blackie was sending out dark arrows without stopping, each dealing over -50 damage. Whereas the others only managed to deal over -20 damage to Willy. Being given a painful beating, Willy was just about to turn around and attack Shifeng when Cola used both Divine Strike and Punishment once more. Willy's hatred was quickly pulled back to Cola. When Willy turned back to Cola, Shifeng used a chop on it. In such a way, Shifeng and Cola took turns aggroing Willy, causing it unable to attack any players. Willy's HP continuously dropped until it was 30%. Willy entered a berserk state, its body increasing by several sizes. Melee players stay away from the boss. Blackie, use Evil Whip. Healer, heal me. Shifeng loudly shouted. In its current state, Willy was definitely going to use its big move, Killing Feast. Lonely Snow and Cola immediately distanced themselves from the boss after hearing Shifeng's command, letting Shifeng tank the boss by himself. When the two of them had run out of the 10-yard range, Willy disappeared. No one understood what happened. When Willy reappeared, it had already arrived at Shifeng's back, and its steel claws abruptly descended. Shifeng had long since been ready for this. He used his sword to block the incoming claws. However, just after blocking this attack, Willy once again disappeared and again appeared behind Shifeng. Within 2 short seconds, Willy had attacked Shifeng's back 7 times. Fortunately, Shifeng's agility had reached 30 points. It was barely enough to match up to Willy's speed. However, every attack Shifeng blocked would still take away a significant amount of HP from him. The heals he received also continuously recovered his HP. -96, -97, +46, -96, -97, +48, +32, -96, -97, +46. If Shifeng did not possess 520 HP and blocked every claw that came at him, Shifeng would have died from Willy's Killing Feast with 100% certainty. At this moment, Shifeng's remaining HP did not reach 100 points. Get rid of it! Shifeng loudly shouted. After using his big move, Willy would enter a weakened state. It was the perfect chance to kill it. Everyone continuously greeted Willy with their attacks, finally shaving off Willy's remaining 30% HP. It dropped 4 items. Just as everyone was about to let loose their breaths, Shifeng took a look at everyone's current status. The healer, Drowsy Sloth's remaining MP did not reach 20%, and the other mage's MP did not reach 10%. Shifeng hurriedly said, "Everyone, sit down and recover immediately." Everyone was confused. Didn't the boss just die? Why must they be in such a hurry? However, everyone still listened to Shifeng's command to sit down and recover. Before they had even sat down and recuperated with food and drinks for 5 seconds, a violent roar entered everyone's ears. The roar had shaken the entire deathly forest, and following it, a black shadow leaped out from within the forest. The black shadow was a gigantic werewolf. The werewolf looked at Willy's corpse, then looked towards Shifeng and the others. Its pitch-black eyes suddenly turned crimson red. Just when it wanted to release a roar, Shifeng dashed towards it with Wind Blade. Immediately, Shifeng used Abyssal Bind. 9 chains appeared and bound the werewolf in its mouth, preventing it from making a sound. At this moment, everyone finally saw the werewolf's statistics. It had a whopping 2 bars of HP. Werewolf Felt Lord rank. Level 3. HP 12,000/12,000. Crap, why is there a Lord boss? Blackie cursed. They had barely rested just after killing a boss, and now there was a Lord in front of them. Lords were a rank higher than chieftains. The game was literally trying to kill them. Everyone remember, absolutely do not let Werewolf Felt let out another roar. Shifeng continuously reminded everyone. However, the others were clearly frightened. Not because of Werewolf Felt's body and HP, but because of that pair of horrifying crimson eyes. They gave off an intimidating feeling to everyone that made it hard to move. The high damage immediately caused Willy to switch its hatred to Shifeng. However, Shifeng did not give it any chance. With his 30 agility, Shifeng easily dodged away from the steel claws, appearing 5 yards away from Willy. Ow! 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 Willy furiously bellowed as it rushed at Shifeng. Ranged players start attacking. Cola, come over and hold Willy after you're done recovering. Shifeng systematically retreated while he dodged Willy's claws. However, the others watching Shifeng were shocked to their souls. This was because Willy's claws would graze by Shifeng's cranium every time it attacked, blowing his hair into a dance. Although everyone was shocked, they never stopped attacking. Magic attacks were sent out one after another, whereas Lonely Snow used Whirlwind Slash at Willy's rear. However, not one of those damages had exceeded -20 points. Willy's HP slowly decreased. When it was occasionally struck by Shifeng, its HP would drop by a segment. Willy's HP had fallen to 90% within a moment. Willy became enraged as it started a mad dance with its claws. It used Death Claws, greatly increasing its attack speed. Shifeng was nearly hit by it. Fortunately, however, he had used the Abyssal Blade to block the attack, only receiving -130 damage from it. At this moment, the Cola rushed up with his full HP. He used a Divine Strike on Willy's head, followed by a punishment. Willy's hatred only switched to Cola after a series of attacks. The switching of hatred had also interrupted Willy's Death Claws, returning Willy to its normal state. Seeing Willy change targets, Shifeng waved out a thundering flash. 3 streaks of thunder passed through Willy's body, dealing -92, -116, -137 damage. At the same time, giving Willy a damage amplification effect, it allowed others to deal 20% more damage to it. The fight with Willy became much easier. Blackie was sending out dark arrows without stopping, each dealing over -50 damage. Whereas the others only managed to deal over -20 damage to Willy. Being given a painful beating, Willy was just about to turn around and attack Shifeng when Cola used both Divine Strike and Punishment once more. Willy's hatred was quickly pulled back to Cola. When Willy turned back to Cola, Shifeng used a chop on it. In such a way, Shifeng and Cola took turns aggroing Willy, causing it unable to attack any players. Willy's HP continuously dropped until it was 30%. Willy entered a berserk state, its body increasing by several sizes. Melee players stay away from the boss. Blackie, use Evil Whip. Healer, heal me. Shifeng loudly shouted. In its current state, Willy was definitely going to use its big move, Killing Feast. Lonely Snow and Cola immediately distanced themselves from the boss after hearing Shifeng's command, letting Shifeng tank the boss by himself. When the two of them had run out of the 10-yard range, Willy disappeared. No one understood what happened. When Willy reappeared, it had already arrived at Shifeng's back, and its steel claws abruptly descended. Shifeng had long since been ready for this. He used his sword to block the incoming claws. However, just after blocking this attack, Willy once again disappeared and again appeared behind Shifeng. Within 2 short seconds, Willy had attacked Shifeng's back 7 times. Fortunately, Shifeng's agility had reached 30 points. It was barely enough to match up to Willy's speed. However, every attack Shifeng blocked would still take away a significant amount of HP from him. The heals he received also continuously recovered his HP. -96, -97, +46, -96, -97, +48, +32, -96, -97, +46. If Shifeng did not possess 520 HP and blocked every claw that came at him, Shifeng would have died from Willy's Killing Feast with 100% certainty. At this moment, Shifeng's remaining HP did not reach 100 points. "Get rid of it!" Shifeng loudly shouted. After using his big move, Willy would enter a weakened state. It was the perfect chance to kill it. Everyone continuously greeted Willy with their attacks, finally shaving off Willy's remaining 30% HP. It dropped 4 items. Just as everyone was about to let loose their breaths, Shifeng took a look at everyone's current status. The healer, Drowsy Sloth's remaining MP did not reach 20%, and the other mage's MP did not reach 10%. Shifeng hurriedly said, "Everyone, sit down and recover immediately." Everyone was confused. Didn't the boss just die? Why must they be in such a hurry? However, everyone still listened to Shifeng's command to sit down and recover. Before they had even sat down and recuperated with food and drinks for 5 seconds, a violent roar entered everyone's ears. The roar had shaken the entire deathly forest, and following it, a black shadow leaped out from within the forest. The black shadow was a gigantic werewolf. The werewolf looked at Willy's corpse, then looked toward Shifeng and the others. Its pitch-black eyes suddenly turned crimson red. Just when it wanted to release a roar, Shifeng dashed towards it with Wind Blade. Immediately, Shifeng used Abyssal Bind. 9 chains appeared and bound the werewolf in its mouth, preventing it from making a sound. At this moment, everyone finally saw the werewolf's statistics. It had a whopping 2 bars of HP. Werewolf Felt Lord rank. Level 3. HP 12,000/12,000. Crap, why is there a Lord boss? Blackie cursed. They had barely rested just after killing a boss, and now there was a Lord in front of them. Lords were a rank higher than chieftains. The game was literally trying to kill them. Everyone remember, absolutely do not let Werewolf Felt let out another roar. Shifeng continuously reminded everyone. However, the others were clearly frightened. Not because of Werewolf Felt's body and HP, but because of that pair of horrifying crimson eyes. They gave off an intimidating feeling to everyone that made it hard to move. Cola had long since been ready for this moment. The instant Shifeng let out the command, his mouth began chanting divine texts. Streaks of golden divine texts rushed at Shifeng. Protection blessing. Suddenly, Shifeng was surrounded by countless golden divine texts, giving off a dazzling golden glow. At the same time, Drowsy Sloth, at the rear of the line, continuously cast Recover and Life Prayer, pulling Shifeng's HP back up to full and returning him to his best condition. Prepare for a battering attack. Absolutely do not leave from my back. Seeing Werewolf Felt's line of sight shifting towards them, Shifeng held the abyssal blade across his chest as he commanded. Hearing Shifeng's words, everyone started to tense up. Their hearts were not courageous to begin with. Now, their hearts started to madly beat. They were being covered in a cold sweat even before Werewolf Felt used its skill. Suddenly, Werewolf Felt moved. Its expanded chest started moving upwards, moving past its throat and to its mouth. Ho! Within an instant, everyone aside from Shifeng felt their hearts stop beating. It was as if the world had turned gray and silent. The soaring birds in the sky had also turned motionless. Everyone could clearly see the multitude of gray-colored waves being emitted from Werewolf Felt's body. Streak after streak, it continuously expanded. The dark gray ripples quickly arrived in front of everyone. However, they could not move even a muscle. It was not because they did not wish to move, but because their bodies could not keep up with the speed of their thoughts. Everyone could feel that time was moving by at an exceptionally slow pace. However, everyone understood that although the movement of time appeared slow, in reality, it was moving at the pinnacle of speed. Just like absolute experts crossing swords, the moment the exchange happened, time would move exceptionally slowly. At this moment, only Shifeng slightly moved. Phantom kill! The instant the dark gray ripples arrived in front of Shifeng, his doppelganger had blocked in front of him. At the same time, the doppelganger used parry. Subsequently, the gray ripples made contact with the doppelganger. However, they were blocked by the doppelganger's parry, whereas the doppelganger himself retreated a step back. He only stabilized his body after colliding with Shifeng. Just after the doppelganger stabilized himself, another wave of ripples came smashing. The ripples passed through the doppelganger's body this time, causing his HP to instantly decrease by 300 points. Behind him, Shifeng had also received -30 damage, while the others behind Shifeng received -20 damage. However, the ripples did not stop with just one wave. When the third wave of ripples passed through the doppelganger, his body had instantly disintegrated. A damage of -100 points also appeared above Shifeng's head. Subsequently, wave after wave of dark gray ripples followed. -100, -100, -100, -100. Shifeng's HP fell time and time again until only 90 points remained. When the final wave of ripples was about to get rid of Shifeng, he used parry. On! Shifeng retreated a big step backward. However, he did not receive any damage. The people behind him were also unharmed. However, their HP after going through several waves of attacks did not exceed 50%. At this moment, Drowsy Sloth's recover had only landed on Shifeng's body, pulling Shifeng's HP back to 140. Following which he used life payment, recovering 130 HP for Shifeng. Within a moment, Shifeng's HP had returned to over 50%. This roar really is powerful. I even thought we were finished. Blackie wiped off the cold sweat from his forehead. If Shifeng had not blocked in front of them, they would all be goners by now. When he thought back to how Shifeng nearly died, Blackie's heart started beating rapidly, reaching 180 beats per minute. If Shifeng died, then they would die as well. There was nobody else in the party who could pin down Werewolf Felt for a long period of time. At this moment, everyone looked at Shifeng as if they were looking at a monster. Never would they have imagined that Shifeng would ingeniously use his doppelganger to block 2 of those onslaughts. He had also used parry on the final attack. The way Shifeng had calculated both damage and HP was absolutely brilliant. Such a technique definitely belonged to the realm of gods. Stop daydreaming, all of you. Quickly attack the boss, it's in a weakened state right now. Shifeng only shrugged his shoulders at his party's reaction. Such a technique could be done by many experts in a few more years. However, Shifeng had yet to relax. The thing he had to pay attention to the most right now was the boss. Only he knew how hard it was to deal with Werewolf Felt. Wind Blade! With gravity liberation activated, Shifeng instantly arrived in front of Felt. He tightly gripped the abyssal blade, continuously sending attacks towards Felt's chest. Thundering Flash! Double Chop! Chop! Damage that exceeded -100 appeared above Werewolf Felt's head, one after another. The other party members were also able to deal damage of over -20 with each attack. Very quickly, they had reduced Werewolf Felt's HP down to 15%. When they saw that Felt was about to die, everyone revealed smiles of excitement. Don't be careless. Blackie, use your evil whip. Lonely Snow, prepare to interrupt with charge. Shifeng commanded as he dodged Werewolf Felt's attack. Being told what to do in such a way, everyone's hearts suddenly constricted. A death stare and a hell's roar was already unimaginably terrifying. If it was any other party here, they would have long since revived back at the graveyard. Could Werewolf Felt actually have another powerful skill?
How horrifying was this hell mode?
Sherfong constantly paid attention to Werewolf Felt's HP. Just when Felt's HP fell down to 10%, its third big move finally came.
Death Berserk.
This move would increase Werewolf Felt's attack speed by 100%, its movement speed by 40%, and its attack power by 100% until it died. It was precisely this move that had caused countless elite parties to curse out in madness. After activating Death Berserk, Werewolf Felt's first started turning red. In a moment, it had become blood red in color. Adding in its crimson red eyes and sharp fangs, Felt looked remarkably like a blood fiend. Its terrifying appearance had caused everyone to inadvertently retreat a step backward. They could clearly feel the air of danger given off by Felt. Sherfong used another double chop, stacking the bleeding effect to 5 layers. Afterward, he spun around and ran. After activating Death Berserk, there was no one under level 5 who was able to block Felt. That included Sherfong, even if he had a magic weapon. The only method was to kite it and slowly grinding Felt to death. The moment Sherfong had escaped the 10-yard distance, Felt's thick thighs suddenly doubled in size. One of its legs abruptly stomped the ground, sending it flying like an arrow, rushing towards Sherfong. Sherfong was about to arrive at the location of the large rock, but behind him, Felt's speed was just too fast. He definitely could not make it. Sherfong abruptly made a 90 degrees sharp turn.
On!
Without making any turns, Werewolf Felt smashed straight into the large rock, blocking its path, turning it into rubble. Fragmented rocks the size of a person's head were sent flying more than 10 yards away. Seeing such horrifying strength, even a fierce man such as Kola had his heart trembling. If he were struck by those claws, then he would definitely become meat paste. At this moment, Sherfong had already distanced himself over 20 yards from Felt. Meanwhile, the attacks from the mages never stopped. They continuously ground away Felt's HP. Sherfeng's plan to kite Felt was a success. Every time Werewolf Felt was about to catch up, Lonely Snow would charge at it. He then followed it up with a bone crusher, greatly reducing Felt's speed. Afterward, he pulled away from Felt once more. When Lonely Snow's skills were on cooldown, Blackie would use Evil Whip to constrict Felt once more. The skills of the two of them had a quick cooldown. With Sherfeng's occasional abyssal bind, they had formed a perfect cycle to toy with Werewolf Felt without pause.
7%, 6%, 5%, 3%.
Finally, when Felt only had 1% HP remaining, Sherfong abruptly turned around.
Wind Blade. Thundering Flash. Chop. Double chop.
Sherfeng's single sword slashed at Werewolf Felt's chest, taking away its final 1% HP. System: your party is the first to clear a Hell Mode dungeon. Rewards increased by 100%, loot increased by 100%. System: cleared Hell Mode of Deathly Forest. Rewarding 8,000 EXP. At this moment, Werewolf Felt exploded, dropping out over 10 items. And amongst them, there was one that made Sherfeng's eyes shine.
Crimson Blade.
It was a sword that had the color of fresh blood. It gave off a dull red glow, and there was also faint drops of red liquid dripping off the edges of the blade. The entire sword revealed a dense killing aura. Sherfong never imagined that the item with an abysmal drop rate would actually appear in front of him.
TL Notes.
One kite, a term in video gaming and elsewhere to describe when a ranged fighter skirmishes with a hand-to-hand fighter by running and shooting. This can have two purposes: A, to damage the enemy while staying outside of hand-to-hand range, or B, to make the enemy follow you so you can lead them to a specific location. Sherfong walked over without hesitation. He quickly picked up the one-handed sword filled with killing intent. The Crimson Blade was one of the rarest drops within the Hell Mode of the Deathly Forest. It was also the best sword for a swordsman below level 6. Crimson Blade Secret Silver Rank, One-Handed Sword. Level 3. Equipment requirement, Strength 12. Attack power plus 21. Strength plus 5, agility plus 6, endurance plus 3. Durability 30/30ths. Its attack power alone could rival a level 5 two-handed bronze axe. With the 6 extra points in agility, it could increase the attack speed of a swordsman by quite a lot. The Crimson Blade was definitely a precious weapon for swordsmen. Unfortunately, Shifeng could not equip it yet. His experience was currently at 69% of level 2. There was still quite an amount before he could reach level 3. Moreover, he wouldn't be able to equip it even if he had reached level 3. This was because swordsmen would only activate the dual-wielding talent after they reached level 5. At that time, Shifeng would be able to wield 2 one-handed swords. By the time Shifeng was level 5, he would be able to wield the Abyssal Blade on his main arm and the Crimson Blade on his sub-arm. His attack power would be invincible amongst level 5 players. Shifeng felt great just thinking about such a future. "Brother Feng, hurry up and pick up the equipment. I'm dying of anxiety here," Blackie urged. "That's right, party leader. You can't just enjoy it by yourself. At least let us have a look at what equipment dropped." The loot on the ground had nearly blinded everyone's eyes. The anxiety burning in their hearts had even caused them to forget their joy of reaching level 2. They all wished to take a look at the drops of the 2 Hell Mode bosses. As for rushing over to snatch the loot, there was nobody present who would do such a thing. Even if the items on the ground were valuable, they still wouldn't do it. If they had done such a thing, although they could feel great for the moment, they would instead regret their actions for the rest of their lives. This was because Shifeng was the true treasure here. Even if Shifeng wanted all of the equipment, there would not be a single person who would refuse him. After all, the only reason they could make it to this point was all because of Shifeng. That was why everyone was just standing by the side, obediently watching instead of rushing up to fight for the loot. All right. No need to rush." Shifeng smiled. He quickly began to collect the items on the ground. Shifeng was very satisfied with everyone's performance. They were unlike the players Shifeng would occasionally party up with in his previous life. When the boss died, those players would rush up in unison to snatch the equipment. They immediately disappeared once they took all the equipment, leaving Shifeng enraged and speechless. The reason Shifeng did not set the party so that only the leader could pick drops was to test everyone's intentions. It was better to discover those treacherous people early on. Now that nobody had rushed up to snatch the items, Shifeng could be more at ease with them. In a short moment, Shifeng had collected all the loot on the ground. There were a total of 19 pieces of equipment and 5 silver coins. Such a harvest could rival the assets of a large guild in its entirety. Arranging his bag, Shifeng's lips curled up into a smile. He found a forging design. Garrison armor forging design. Able to create a piece of level 3 bronze-ranked chest armor after learning the design. Materials required: 20 copper ores, 5 bronze ores, 5 magic essences. This piece of equipment was a good item. As long as a party's MT equipped it, diving into the normal mode of the Deathly Forest would become much easier. Not only did it have high defense and strength, it also increased maximum HP by 200 points. It was an extremely important piece of equipment for any MT. In Shifeng's previous life, when this equipment was released, every guild madly fought over it. They also ignored all costs to enter the Deathly Forest in order to obtain this forging design. When Blackie saw Shifeng's excited smile, his heart became even more anxious. It was needless to say for the other people, if a person's sight could kill, Shifeng probably would have died over hundreds or thousands of times by now. The items are not bad. Here, you guys have a look. Shifeng did not waste any more time. He immediately displayed the attributes of all the equipment. There were a total of 15 pieces of equipment. Amongst them, there was only a single secret silver equipment, which was the Crimson Blade. There were also 5 pieces of mysterious iron equipment and 9 pieces of bronze equipment. The bronze equipment dropped by the bosses of Hell Mode were all of the highest quality. The bronze equipment dropped by elites were far from comparable. Amongst all the equipment, after the Crimson Blade, the most valuable items were the pieces of mysterious iron equipment. Out of the 3 modes of the Deathly Forest, only Hell mode dropped mysterious iron equipment, whereas normal and difficult only dropped bronze equipment. Blackie's luck had always been good. Amongst the 5 pieces of mysterious iron equipment, there were 2 pieces of the dark color set meant for Cursemancers. The dark color set was definitely the set equipment for Cursemancers below level 5. There were a total of 5 pieces in the dark color set: head, chest, legs, shoes, arm guards. This time around, the parts that dropped were the chest and shoes. These 2 items had placed a wide smile on Blackie's face. Brother Fong, I really love coming down to Hell.
Let's come here once every day.
That way, I can complete the dark color set, and if anyone dares look down upon us at that time, I'll blast him to pieces. Blackie showed off the dark color set in his hands. After wearing the dark color set, Blackie felt himself becoming closer to an expert. His magic attack was increased to 66. A single level 3 dark arrow could take away more than half the HP of a level 1 shield warrior. If he could complete the dark color set, then a single dark arrow could one-shot a shield warrior. He put on the suit of ash gray fur robes, coupled with glistening pitch-black boots. Everyone could tell they were pieces of a set with just a glance. The others drooled when they saw the black luster of the dark color set. Their hearts were filled with hatred and envy for Blackie. They had never imagined entering Hell would be such a great experience. They truly hoped they could enter Hell a few more times in the future. The remaining 3 pieces of mysterious iron equipment were the set pieces for Guardian Knight, Shield Warrior, and Elementalist. Amongst those present, only Cola was a Guardian Knight. Thus, Shifeng gave the piece of equipment to Cola and stored the others. As for the remaining bronze equipment, Cola received a shield and Lonely Snow received a greatsword. Both pieces of level 2 equipment had the best attributes possible on them. Drowsy Sloth and Gluttonous Mouse also received a piece of bronze equipment each. Quite a few pieces of Shifeng's equipment were also replaced. Amongst the bronze equipment, there were 3 pieces that belonged to swordsmen. The 2 pieces of equipment that remained were stored away by Shifeng. Oni. When everyone had changed their equipment, it was as if the entire party had a makeover. Every piece of their equipment was incomparably brilliant. Just a glance was enough to tell that they didn't just have common equipment. The entire party had also risen to level 2. Blackie's experience was even at 98% of level 2, just a tad bit short of level 3. The other 4 items were a forging design, a potion recipe, a rare skill for Cursemancers, and a notebook. The rare skill for Cursemancers overjoyed Blackie. It was an AoE skill called Hellflame.
Hellflame
deals 150% flame damage to an 8 by 8 yard area. Duration of 5 seconds. Cooldown 36 seconds. It was a godly skill for grinding monsters during the early periods of the game.
What is this thing for?
Shifeng looked at the old notebook in his hand. He could not recall the Hell mode of the Deathly Forest dropping such an item. Taking a look inside, Shifeng discovered words which he could not understand. However, Shifeng knew these words belonged to the ancient language of the elves. Within God's domain, any items which had a relationship with the elven language were definitely not common items. Just like the Ring of Gravity, there was a string of elvish words carved onto it. They had allowed the ring to possess unimaginable powers. It seems I have to make a trip to the library. Shifeng felt this notebook was not as simple as it seemed. In his previous life, he entered the Hell mode of the Deathly Forest tens of times. However, he had never seen such an item drop before. There was no such news from the other teams in the guild as well. The likelihood of the notebook dropping only on the first kill was high. If Shifeng wanted to make heads with the situation, he had to translate its contents at the library. Brother Feng, what are we going to do afterward?
Grinding mobs?
Blackie was eager to try out the new skill he learned.
That's fine as well.
We'll grind and do quests in Dark Moon Valley. The monsters there drop quite a lot of, Shifeng said after some thought. With the forging design in hand, all that was left was to obtain the materials. However, Shifeng needed a lot of materials. Now that Blackie had Hellflame, it should be a lot quicker to kill kobolds and gnomes. Furthermore, Shifeng knew of a few good locations where it would be suitable to use Hellflame. Shifeng turned to look at the others, saying, "Will you guys follow us or do quests on your own?"
Big Brother Feng, how could you leave me out of grinding mobs?
I've already planned to follow Big Brother Feng in the future. Kola smiled like a fool as he gently caressed his new shield.
Big Brother Feng, can we join as well?
Drowsy Sloth and Gluttonous Mouse were both high schoolers. Currently, they had their heads lowered in embarrassment. However, they did not wish to give up such a chance. Shifeng was a great expert. They would reap endless benefits if they could learn a thing or two by staying by his side. Shifeng said, smiling, "Of course you are all welcome to join." Suddenly, the two of them revealed excited expressions, both their hands clenched up in excitement. "Since nobody is opposed to it, then we will go grind in Dark Moon Valley." After finishing his piece, Shifeng called out the system panel. He selected the dungeon's party teleportation, parting with the Deathly Forest. There was a sea of players in front of the Deathly Forest. Currently, they were all gathered around the dungeon's entrance. Such a situation was due to the actions of the large guilds of Redleaf Town. The elite teams of these large guilds had all arrived at the Deathly Forest. They were all prepared to challenge the dungeon. These teams were much stronger than the loosely made elite parties. Common equipment covered their entire bodies. There were even pieces of bronze equipment in the mix. That's Heaven's Crown's Core MT Immovable Mountain. Never have I imagined that even he would come to this place. Someone will surely clear the Deathly Forest this time. Humph, Heaven's Crown is just a third-rate guild. Look over there, even the sub-leader of Assassin's Alliance, Stabbing Heart, is here. Also, the Guardian Knight named Warsoul by his side is the top 5 knight of the Assassin's Alliance. He is even stronger than the Immovable Mountain. The players in the surrounding area started a discussion amongst themselves. They held optimistic views towards these large guilds at clearing the Deathly Forest. It was to be expected, as there were over 10 guilds currently present, both large and small. Amongst these guilds, the most well-known guild would be the second-rate guild, Assassin's Alliance. Following them would be the third-rate guild, Heaven's Crown. The others were just some unknown guilds, but they still would not be looked down on. This was because a workshop stood behind every guild. These workshops hired experts. Average players could not compare to them. Each large guild wanted to build its reputation in Redleaf Town. Conquering the first dungeon in Redleaf Town was the perfect way to do so. Hence, all of the large guilds made ample preparations for the dungeon. They spent large sums of their assets to buy equipment and medicine. They also bought a lot of information on the Deathly Forest. So, they were extremely confident about conquering the dungeon.
Boss waving, these guild teams have gorgeous equipment.
They will definitely clear the Deathly Forest this time, a wordless summer knight commented with a pained expression. Waving slowly but surely crossed his arms in front of his chest. He nodded slightly, saying in a helpless tone, "The Deathly Forest is too difficult. We party-wiped before we even met the boss. In the end, parties like ours only became scouts for the guilds."
What's there to brag about being a guild's expert?
Boss, it's not our skills that are lacking. The dungeon is just too horrifying. It has too high of an equipment quality requirement, the Shield Warrior, battled to the end said in disdain. He held contempt for the guild experts deep in his heart, and he was sure only their equipment prevented them from clearing the dungeon.
That's right, boss.
If our party had such equipment, we would have long since cleared the Deathly Forest, Wordless Summer Knight confidently said. Speaking of dungeons, Wordless Summer thought of Shifeng's party. He giggled as he said, "It's not like we didn't have any gain. We've killed 2 night rabbits and even got a skill book for berserkers. Compared to that party led by Captain Noob, we're much stronger. They still haven't shown themselves. I guess they've already fled from embarrassment. It sure is a pity for Lonely Snow. If he followed the boss, then he would have been given this skill book? If he found out about it, he would regret not following us into the dungeon." That's right. Lonely Snow doesn't know how to appreciate the kindness given to him. Now, he will definitely regret not following the boss, Battle to the End laughingly said. Lonely Snow's skills are still quite good. I don't know how that noob managed to gain the favor of that expert called Blackie. However, no matter how great that expert's techniques are, with dead weight pulling him back they would still party wipe. He is probably too ashamed to show himself right now. If he had gone with us, we might have cleared the deathly forest by now. A Waving slowly was silently pleased with Blackie's end. Boss, the guilds are going to enter now, a wordless Summer said. However, just as the guilds were about to enter the deathly forest, the dungeon's teleportation gate suddenly changed color. It instantly turned from a silvery gray to a pitch-black color. There was also an indistinct skull that was roaring. The many members of the guilds couldn't help but retreat a few steps back. What is this situation? Such a question appeared within everyone's hearts. However, they quickly received their answer. Niai. 6 figures suddenly appeared in front of the dungeon's entrance. Each and every one of them was clothed in glorious garments. Just by standing there, the 6 of them caused others to feel a faint pressure, especially the cursemancer with the black-colored staff. The dark gray-colored equipment on the cursemancer was clearly a set. A single glance was enough to tell they were not common goods. The materials it was made of were much better than bronze equipment. Why are there so many people? Shifeng took a look at his surroundings, discovering these people were the elite teams of large guilds. He was slightly confused as to why all these people were blocking the dungeon's entrance. Shifeng's party members also started to panic. The pressure from being watched by so many people was no weaker than facing off against a boss monster. Boss Waving, look. Isn't that the noob? Wordless Summer pointed toward Shifeng. Waving slowly knitted his brows. Shifeng was not the only person he spotted, there was also Lonely Snow. He curiously asked, how could they be here? Didn't they run away long ago? In my view, I think they did not even enter the forest of the dungeon. They knew they could not clear the dungeon, but they were also afraid of embarrassing themselves. So, they stayed in there until now. Battle to the End laughed, but now they just happened to get caught after leaving the dungeon. Just look at how ugly Lonely Snow's expression is. Ha ha ha. As expected of a noob, he doesn't even have the courage to enter the dungeon. Waving slowly but surely felt Wordless Summer Knight's words made sense. If not, how could Shifeng's party have returned safely? Waving slowly and the other party members experienced the horrendousness of the deathly forest. After entering the forest of the dungeon, there were only 2 possible results, either they cleared the dungeon or they party wiped. There was no possibility of a third option. Now that Shifeng's party had returned safely, there was only one possibility, they never entered the forest. It was impossible that they cleared the deathly forest. During the time Waving slowly and company started laughing at Shifeng's party, the players surrounding Shifeng had already laughed themselves into madness. Such a scene confused Waving slowly and party. Why were these people laughing at Shifeng's party? Were they actually famous? What Waving Slowly's party did not know was that Shifeng's party had already become famous throughout the entire deathly forest. Shifeng's party mainly consisted of level 1 noobs, yet they entered the hell mode of the dungeon. There was no action more foolish than this. It would be hard for others not to notice such an action. As they say, bad news has wings. Ha ha ha, that exotic player is back. I actually admired him for entering the hell mode of the deathly forest, but he was just a coward. I can't take it anymore, my stomach hurts too much from laughing. The players surrounding Shifeng's party understood their actions. They had foolishly entered the hell mode of the dungeon, so they could not enter deep into the dungeon. Instead, they stayed around the dungeon's entrance and looked for a time to leave the dungeon in secret. Unfortunately, even God would not help them. They coincidentally left just to be seen by the many guilds. Brother Feng, what's wrong with these people? Blackie looked at the laughing players laying on the ground. Scratching his head, he asked with an odd tone, did their brains go bad? Why are they holding their stomachs and laughing on the ground? Who knows? Maybe their brains had a cramp. It seems we shouldn't play God's domain too long, especially for the first time. Shifeng did not think their appearance had any relation to the actions of these people.
We better leave.
This is just giving me the creeps. The other members of the party nodded in agreement. The players in the deathly forest were truly strange. Big brother, please hold on for a moment. Just as Shifeng's party was about to leave the dungeon's entrance, a ringing voice entered everyone's ears. Taking a look at the voice's origin, a beautiful and pure maiden dressed in a pure white mage's robe was seen walking towards Shifeng's party. Shifeng recognized this person. She was Starmoon Kingdom's top 100 cleric, Xiaoyuer. Xiaoyuer walked to Shifeng with an embarrassed look, a blush appearing on her tender white cheeks. She whispered, "Nice to meet you. I am Xiaoyuer of Ouroboros. We met before entering the dungeon. Our party's leader wishes to have a chat with you about the Deathly Forest's dungeon.
I wonder if you would be interested in sharing?"
However, just as the guilds were about to enter the Deathly Forest, the dungeon's teleportation gate suddenly changed color. It instantly turned from a silvery gray to a pitch-black color. There was also an indistinct skull that was roaring. The many members of the guilds couldn't help but retreat a few steps back.
What is this situation?
Such a question appeared within everyone's hearts. However, they quickly received their answer.
Niai.
6 figures suddenly appeared in front of the dungeon's entrance. Each and every one of them was clothed in glorious garments. Just by standing there, the 6 of them caused others to feel a faint pressure, especially the cursemancer with the black-colored staff. The dark gray-colored equipment on the cursemancer was clearly a set. A single glance was enough to tell they were not common goods. The materials it was made of were much better than bronze equipment.
Why are there so many people?
Shifeng took a look at his surroundings, discovering these people were the elite teams of large guilds. He was slightly confused as to why all these people were blocking the dungeon's entrance. Shifeng's party members also started to panic. The pressure from being watched by so many people was no weaker than facing off against a boss monster.
Boss waving look. Isn't that the noob?
Wordless Summer pointed toward Shifeng. Waving slowly knitted his brows. Shifeng was not the only person he spotted, there was also Lonely Snow. He curiously asked, how could they be here? Didn't they run away long ago? In my view, I think they did not even enter the forest of the dungeon. They knew they could not clear the dungeon, but they were also afraid of embarrassing themselves.
So, they stayed in there until now.
Battle to the End laughed, but now they just happened to get caught after leaving the dungeon. Just look at how ugly Lonely Snow's expression is. Ha ha ha. As expected of a noob, he doesn't even have the courage to enter the dungeon. Waving slowly but surely felt Wordless Summer Knight's words made sense. If not, how could Shifeng's party have returned safely? Waving slowly and the other party members experienced the horrendousness of the Deathly Forest. After entering the forest of the dungeon, there were only 2 possible results, either they cleared the dungeon or they party wiped. There was no possibility of a third option. Now that Shifeng's party had returned safely, there was only one possibility, they never entered the forest. It was impossible that they cleared the Deathly Forest. During the time Waving slowly and company started laughing at Shifeng's party, the players surrounding Shifeng had already laughed themselves into madness. Such a scene confused Waving slowly and party. Why were these people laughing at Shifeng's party? Were they actually famous? What Waving Slowly's party did not know was that Shifeng's party had already become famous throughout the entire Deathly Forest. Shifeng's party mainly consisted of level 1 noobs, yet they entered the hell mode of the dungeon. There was no action more foolish than this. It would be hard for others not to notice such an action. As they say, bad news has wings.
Ha ha ha, that exotic player is back.
I actually admired him for entering the hell mode of the Deathly Forest, but he was just a coward. I can't take it anymore, my stomach hurts too much from laughing. The players surrounding Shifeng's party understood their actions. They had foolishly entered the hell mode of the dungeon, so they could not enter deep into the dungeon. Instead, they stayed around the dungeon's entrance and looked for a time to leave the dungeon in secret. Unfortunately, even God would not help them. They coincidentally left just to be seen by the many guilds. "Brother Fong, what's wrong with these people?" Blackie looked at the laughing players laying on the ground. Scratching his head, he asked with an odd tone, "Did their brains go bad? Why are they holding their stomachs and laughing on the ground?" "Who knows? Maybe their brains had a cramp. It seems we shouldn't play God's domain too long, especially for the first time." Shifeng did not think their appearance had any relation to the actions of these people. "We better leave. This is just giving me the creeps." The other members of the party nodded in agreement. The players in the deathly forest were truly strange. "Big brother, please hold on for a moment." Just as Shifeng's party was about to leave the dungeon's entrance, a ringing voice entered everyone's ears. Taking a look at the voice's origin, a beautiful and pure maiden dressed in a pure white mage's robe was seen walking towards Shifeng's party. Shifeng recognized this person. She was Starmoon Kingdom's top 100 cleric, Xiaoyuer. Xiaoyuer walked to Shifeng with an embarrassed look, a blush appearing on her tender white cheeks. She whispered, "Nice to meet you. I am Xiaoyuer of Ouroboros. We met before entering the dungeon. Our party's leader wishes to have a chat with you about the Deathly Forest's dungeon. I wonder if you would be interested in sharing?" Gentle Snow's eyes flashed when Shifeng also wanted to gift her something. She felt astonished and thought Shifeng was an interesting person. Shifeng conducted himself properly, and he was not as hard to get along with as she had imagined. "You? Gifting Snow a present? Do you think Snow would even want it?" Zhao Yueru could not help but turn her head around. Her fresh red lips curled into a seductive smile, and her eyes held a sneer within them. She was silently laughing at Shifeng's overestimation of himself. What kind of item has Gentle Snow not seen before? Even luxury cars worth over 10 million could not catch her attention, not to mention an item within a game. Currently, Shifeng took out a piece of paper from his bag. This drawing was one of the drops from the boss. Shifeng nonchalantly passed the item over to Gentle Snow. When Zhao Yueru saw Shifeng take out a piece of scrap paper and give it as a present to Gentle Snow, she could not help but coldly say, "Are you trying to make a fool of us?" "No?" Shifeng said in a serious tone. "Snow gave you a piece of bronze equipment, yet what about you? You took out a piece of scrap paper to trick her. Do you think a piece of scrap paper could compare to a piece of bronze equipment? If you're not playing us for fools, then what are you trying to do?" Hearing Shifeng's answer, Zhao Yueru was further enraged. Behind Shifeng, Blackie, and the others were each covered in a cold sweat. Even if you did not wish to chat with the goddess, you still should not make a fool of her. Wasn't this just courting death? They clearly obtained a good amount of equipment inside the dungeon, and just simply giving one of those pieces would easily solve the problem. If Shifeng's actions angered the goddess, even if the goddess herself did not take action, the players surrounding them would surely kill them off for her. Seeing a mishap about to occur, Blackie thought of giving away the bronze staff he held. However, Gentle Snow gladly received the scrap paper Shifeng gave her. Suddenly, Blackie and everyone else's mouths formed a 0H shape. The goddess accepted it? What kind of situation was this? Thank you for your present, I like it very much. Now, can we go somewhere with fewer people to have our chat? Gentle Snow smiled in appreciation. Shifeng also smiled and nodded in agreement. Looking at Gentle Snow's faint smile was like watching a dazzling sun that warmed a person's heart. It would be hard to forget such a smile even after a lifetime. Snow, you're going to forgive his rude actions just like that? Zhao Yueru asked in a puzzled tone. It's all right, Yueru. I like this item very much. Gentle Snow turned around after commenting, letting Shifeng lead the way. Zhao Yueru was stunned. She just could not understand what kind of drug Shifeng had given Gentle Snow. Was a piece of scrap paper enough? Just what was this piece of scrap paper? Snow, just what did that fellow give you? Zhao Yueru whispered. Just by seeing the fire poker on Shifeng's waist, she could tell Shifeng would not be able to give anything valuable. However, gentle snow still happily received it. Such a result puzzled Zhao Yueru significantly. A potion recipe for the basic strength potion. When consumed, it will increase a player's strength by 6 points for half an hour. Gentle Snow calmly replied, "What?" Zhao Yueru leaped up in shock. How could he have such a precious recipe? Potion making was very hard to learn. The recipes needed were famed for being rare drops. Even the current Ouroboros only had a few normal recipes, not to mention rare recipes. A recipe that was capable of increasing the strength of a player by 6 points was unheard of until now. If the current level 2 players could have an extra 6 points in strength, that would equate to an additional 12 attack power. Such a potion would have a significant effect when they dove into a dungeon. Regarding guilds who frequently conquered dungeons, the value of this recipe far surpassed that of tens of pieces of bronze equipment. As long as the basic strength potion were for sale, the supply would never be able to meet the demand. Yet Shifeng gifted such a recipe away. Did Shifeng not know the value of this recipe? However, Zhao Yueru shook her head, denying this assumption. Before, she had seen the confident expression on Shifeng's face. He knew the immense value it had towards their guild. Currently, Zhao Yueru turned her head once more towards Shifeng. A tinge of red appeared on her cheeks when she thought back to what she said before. She felt humiliated. She actually called a rare recipe a scrap paper. When she thought of Shifeng's smile, he was definitely laughing at her lack of knowledge. He was such a hateful bastard. Now you finally know. I've already said he wasn't simple. Gentle Snow smiled at Zhao Yueru. Even after Gentle Snow and Shifeng left the scene, the surrounding players had yet to recover themselves. What kind of situation was this? A noob actually received the attention of the goddess. Was this person really a noob? Boss waving slowly, that noob left with the goddess. Wordless Summer Night was very upset. After watching the goddess being very courteous with Shifeng, even an idiot could tell Shifeng was not that simple. Don't mind it. I've heard from others that the noob entered the hell mode of the deathly forest. The snow goddess must have intentionally invited him to learn about the difficulty of hell mode. Waving slowly did not believe that he would misjudge a person. Shifeng was definitely a noob. He must have just been incredibly fortunate. Before, he managed to gain the favor of an expert. Now, he also somehow managed to obtain the favor of the goddess. In a rock pit over 200 yards south of the deathly forest, Gentle Snow and Shifeng sat facing each other. Surrounding them was a beautiful scenery and gurgling streams. As for the others, they stood to the sides. None of them tried to eavesdrop on the conversation between Shifeng and Gentle Snow. They comfortably sat down and started chatting amongst themselves. I wonder what business Miss Snow has for me? The Deathly Forest. Gentle Snow openly said, I want the strategy for the Deathly Forest. State your price. I'm afraid Miss Snow is overthinking things. How could I have the strategy to the Deathly Forest? I've only entered the dungeon once. Shifeng would not admit to possessing the strategy. It would bring about the suspicion of others. After all, God's Domain was a game constructed by the main God system. Even beta testers would not know a detailed strategy for the dungeon. It was still possible to trick amateurs such as Blackie, but it was impossible to trick Gentle Snow. Troubles would arise if Shifeng were to generously share his strategy. Gentle Snow smiled sweetly. Her eyes swept once across Shifeng's party members before calmly saying, if I'm not mistaken, the equipment your party members are wearing all came from the hell mode of the Deathly Forest. Although your party has 1 or 2 players with proper techniques, everyone knows you had invited 3 level 1 noobs as temporary members. Such a party was able to enter hell mode, and even came out with quite a lot of equipment. Do you think I would believe you if you said you did not have any information? Let's not twist our words around. I know you're a beta tester, and not just any beta tester. You must have done detailed research on the Deathly Forest. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to clear the dungeon at all. This basic strength potion recipe is the best evidence as to why I would say you've cleared it. You can rest assured, however, that I will not reveal your secret. Gentle Snow fixated her gaze on Shifeng as if she saw through Shifeng's entire being. All right, what you say is correct. Shifeng shrugged his shoulders, silently letting loose a breath. He never thought gentle snow would fill up the questionable gaps. It would not be any better for Shifeng if gentle snow thought in such a way. State your price then. Gentle snow was all smiles with Shifeng. It was as though she was saying, did you think I could not control a person like you? This lady knows everything. Seeing gentle snow smile with confidence, Shifeng was already snickering in silence. Sheep's wool comes from a sheep. If you wish to earn money, it was natural to obtain it from a wealthy person. A first-rate guild like Ouroboros was unquestionably an appropriate target. According to Shifeng's knowledge, the guild, Ouroboros, had already conquered over 10 virtual reality games. However, the appearance of God's domain had shaken the virtual gaming world. It was dubbed as mankind's second world. It caused the collapse of many other virtual reality games. Afterward, countless companies started madly investing in God's domain, nurturing their guild, growing their influence, and building their place in the virtual financial world. Naturally, Ouroboros also invested in God's domain. They too wanted to share a bite of the countless assets. Also, Ouroboros was not just wealthy, it also had a great background. The number of experts working under Ouroboros exceeded over 1,000. These 1,000 men were famed as the god-slaying army in God's domain. The existence of these 1,000 experts allowed Ouroboros to establish a large virtual empire. They unified over 80 cities in God's domain that each had a population of over 1 million players. Ouroboros was a true tyrant in God's domain. During Ouroboros' peak, it was the equivalent to the entire Starmoon Kingdom. As for Shadow, it had only established 10 cities that did not have populations exceeding 1 million players. In such a way, Ouroboros had become a peerless tyrant in the real world. Their position was truly unimaginable. It should be known that Starmoon Kingdom was a relatively large kingdom, even amongst the hundreds present in God's domain. It was at the upper middle ranks. One could clearly see Ouroboros' prowess when compared to it. How could Shifeng not wish to work with such a powerful guild? It was just the risk of working with gentle snow was too high. Because of her particular identity, the information she could get a hold of was just too great. Shifeng could not help but be cautious of her. It was why he intentionally revealed some hints, especially with the recipe for the basic strength potion. He wanted to see gentle snow's reaction. If she behaved in a bad way, Shifeng would naturally act ignorant and push all responsibility away. However, the present situation was undoubtedly the one Shifeng looked forward to the most. Since you've already explained, my asking price isn't high. 20 silver coins. Shifeng calmly stated. To a small guild of current times, 20 silver coins would already be their entire fortune. Even a 100-man money farming group would need 2 to 3 days to collect such an amount. Zhao Yueru sucked in a cold breath, nearly jumping up when she heard Shifeng casually ask for 20 silver coins. She stared at Shifeng, furiously saying, "Why don't you just rob someone? That would be a faster way." "I would do it if I could get that much money," Shifeng said with a smile. "You should know there is a lot of skill books, weapons, and equipment for players inside the Deathly Forest. They can quickly increase the strength of players. If you could conquer the Deathly Forest a step earlier, the benefits it would bring towards future developments go without saying. Can't you make it a little cheaper? 20 silvers? Even we, Ouroboros, can't simply take out that much money." Zhao Yueru thoroughly disliked Shifeng now. However, when she thought about the importance of the Deathly Forest, she still used a softer tone to speak to Shifeng. "Sorry, but no negotiations. If you don't agree to it, then I can only consider working with some other guild." Shifeng remained firm with his decision. He had been very sincere in dealing with Gentle Snow. If it was still not possible, he could only consider the Assassin's Alliance. The Assassin's Alliance was wealthy and imposing. Before, they spent over 20 silvers to buy Shifeng's level 5 bronze shield. "I understand. 20 silvers then. However, we need some time to collect the money. After all, our Ouroboros area of influence isn't in White River City, but at the capital, Starmoon City. There are only a few Ouroboros members close to White River City. Give me a day's time, take these 7 silvers as a deposit. I will compensate you with 15 silvers a day later. Gentle Snow had never imagined Shifeng's appetite would be so great. 20 silvers was still a lot to her. However, the importance of clearing the deathly forest was too great. They had to grasp it as soon as possible. At the same time, Gentle Snow knew that silver coins were precious during the early periods of the game. Hence, she had given a little more to Shifeng as interest. Alright. Here is the map of the deathly forest, and also the things you need to pay attention to when fighting against the boss. Shifeng also knew what Gentle Snow had said was true. Wanting to gather 20 silver coins would not be easy. Ouroboros did not have as great of influence in White River City as the Assassin's Alliance did. Shifeng sent mail to Gentle Snow containing detailed introductions to the deathly forest. With Gentle Snow's abilities, they should be able to clear normal mode easily. Gentle Snow looked at the strategy she received for the deathly forest. Her heart slightly shook only after a slight glance. She never imagined the deathly forest would be so horrifying. Just the number of paths available already numbered 36. 33 of them were dead ends. There was even a night ranger who moved based on opportunity. There was also a detailed description of the boss and when it would cast its skills. She definitely got more than 20 silvers worth of information. If she sent others to explore the paths bit by bit, the cost would exceed 20 silvers. Suddenly, another change occurred to Gentle Snow's perception of Shifeng. She felt Shifeng was not as simple as he seemed to be. He was certainly an expert. Only an expert could have such a profound understanding of the dungeon. However, Gentle Snow had no recollection of an expert swordsman like Shifeng. In 3 days Ouroboros is planning to enter the first level 5, 20-man dungeon, the Dark Moon Graveyard. I wonder if you will be interested in joining? Gentle Snow beautiful eyes looked towards Shifeng as she invited him to the team dungeon. She already acknowledged Shifeng's strength. If Shifeng was with them entering the team dungeon, they might have an easier time in it. From aside, Blackie looked at Shifeng with dumbstruck eyes. His admiration for Shifeng had already reached the level of worship. He never imagined Shifeng would be so awesome as to conquer the snow goddess in a few moves. The goddess even wished to invite him to raid a dungeon. How great of an honor was this? There were countless men who dreamt of raiding a dungeon with the snow goddess. However, Zhao Yueru became irritated after hearing Gentle Snow invite him. Shifeng was but a beta tester. At most, he had experienced God's domain a few more days than they did and had a deeper understanding of the deathly forest. However, the 20-man team dungeon had only opened after the game's official release. It did not exist during the beta test, so there was no way for Shifeng to know anything about it. Also, Shifeng wasn't some powerful expert. What point would there be in inviting him? He would just be wasting a slot in the dungeon. Shifeng entered a thought. There were a lot of good items that dropped from a 20-man dungeon. It had been particularly true for the Dark Moon Graveyard, which dropped a lot of worthwhile equipment for swordsmen. The attributes of the equipment from that dungeon were also much better than the ones obtained from wild bosses. However, Shifeng was not able to organize a 20-man party, so it wouldn't be a disadvantage to join Gentle Snow for a round. Alright, but leave a few spots for me. Also, all swordsman equipment and forging designs must belong to me, Shifeng answered with a nod. Can't you be a little more humble? Zhao Yueru looked at Shifeng, pouting. She felt Shifeng was going too overboard. If Gentle Snow had asked anyone else, they would have readily agreed, even going as far as to forego getting any equipment. Shifeng, however, even wanted priority over equipment. He was not courteous with them at all. Gentle Snow did not imagine Shifeng was truly different from the other people. He did not play around with his words. However, it was interesting that he would say whatever he wanted. Following which, Gentle Snow looked towards the party members behind Shifeng. Although they were noobs, their equipment was all of good quality. They could barely manage in the 20-man dungeon. Thus, Gentle Snow said, "Fine. Let's at each other as friends then. We'll be in touch when the time comes." All right. You can just contact me a few hours before raiding the dungeon. I'll arrive on time. Shifeng accepted Gentle Snow's friend request. Subsequently, Shifeng and his party members left the small rock pit, heading towards Dark Moon Valley. When the group passed through the Deathly Forest's dungeon, Stabbing Heart of the Assassin's Alliance abruptly called out to Shifeng, "Brother Yifeng, I nearly failed to recognize you. I never imagined you actually knew a big shot like the Snow Goddess. You must not forget a brother like me in the future," Stabbing Heart jokingly said as he walked towards Shifeng. "Nonsense. I just happened to meet with Miss Snow by chance," Shifeng replied with a smile. "Brother Yifeng, you are too humble. Based on your strength, you are absolutely worthy of becoming friends with the Snow Goddess. After all, both of you are experts of the same level." Stabbing Heart thought Shifeng was very humble. It was no wonder he was such a great expert. The way he conducted himself was different than ordinary people. Stabbing Heart wanted to befriend Shifeng even more now. "Our Assassin's Alliance is preparing to enter the dungeon. I wonder if Brother Yifeng would be interested in joining us? Of course, you can pick any of the equipment that you want." "You are too courteous, Brother Stabbing Heart. However, I still have some things to attend to. I will definitely join if there is another chance in the future." Shifeng politely rejected the offer. Stabbing Heart spoke in a loud voice. Surrounding players clearly heard his words. At first, everyone thought of Shifeng as just a noob. His being called upon by the Snow Goddess was just due to luck. Even now, Stabbing Heart of the Assassin's Alliance wished to befriend Shifeng. Just what sort of situation was this? The Assassin's Alliance was a large guild that was famous throughout White River City. As the sub-leader of the guild's elite group, Stabbing Heart would not need to interact with normal players at all. However, he tried to befriend Shifeng. Shifeng had actually rejected him. Shifeng was just too domineering. If someone were to call Shifeng a noob, nobody would believe them. There was something strange about the situation. Everyone guessed that Shifeng must be a hidden expert that normal players did not know of. Otherwise, why would big shots try to meet Shifeng one after the other? Boss waving that Stabbing Heart actually tried to befriend that noob. I'm not dreaming, right? Wordless Summer Night was shocked. Was this Shifeng really the noob they met before? Waving slowly but surely was currently upset in his heart. Initially, his heart still held hope that Shifeng was just a noob. Now, however, that hope was utterly destroyed by Stabbing Heart. Shifeng was not a noob. He was definitely an expert, just like Lonely Snow had said. Shifeng might even be greater than Lonely Snow had described him to be. If Lonely Snow followed Shifeng, then his future would certainly be filled with boundless prospects. On the other hand, they had chased Shifeng away. They had missed a great chance for them to befriend an expert. Boss, why don't we go over and apologize? An expert is a magnanimous person. Who knows, he might even forgive us. At that time, we too could gain the favor of an expert, Battle to the End suggested. Wordless Summer Night nodded his head in complete agreement. Just as Shifeng's party was about to leave the Deathly Forest, waving slowly but surely and the others came running over. Big Brother Expert, we've had some misunderstandings before, so we're here to apologize to you. We hope you can forgive our ignorance. Here's a silver coin to show our sincerity. We hope Big Brother Expert can take us under your wing. A waving slowly was all smiles as he apologized. The arrogance he had before was completely gone now. Wordless Summer Night and Battle to the End were also sincerely apologizing without stop. They wished to grind monsters with Shifeng. If you guys don't have anything else to say, then please leave. I still have matters to attend to, so I don't have any time to waste with you. Shifeng spun around to leave after replying. He did not mind one little bit in regards to waving slowly and the others' previous behavior. However, wanting him to carry them? Not a chance. As for Lonely Snow, he only shook his head in regards to waving slowly and the others' actions. If they had known that their actions would lead to such results today, maybe they wouldn't have acted so in the beginning. Watching Lonely Snow leave with Shifeng, Wordless Summer curled his lips into a frown, saying in a sour tone, "Bah!
What's there to be amazed about? In the future, I too will become an expert.
However, only Waving slowly knew Lonely Snow would become successful in the future. He was already in a different world than them.
TL notes.
1 carry, a gaming term used to refer to a player who largely contributed to the team's victory. After leaving the Deathly Forest, Shifeng's party rushed towards Dark Moon Valley without rest. At the current stage of the game, many players had already risen to level 2. Aside from raiding the dungeon at the Deathly Forest, they would stay in Brook Hills to kill level 2 cheetah cubs. Only a few experts would go to the level 4 area, Dark Moon Valley, to level up. However, along with the increase in player levels, it wouldn't be long before Dark Moon Valley would become occupied. After spending over half an hour returning to Dark Moon Valley, the scene they met with was the same as what Shifeng expected. A few elite parties who were uninterested in the dungeon were currently killing level 4 kobolds that were wandering around the outer parts of the valley. These elite parties were quite skilled. They lured 2 or 3 monsters each time, with the shield warrior tanking in front and preventing the kobolds from closing in on their mage and healer. The healer was continuously healing from behind, barely maintaining the shield warrior's HP. Although it was taxing to grind in such a way, the gains from the fight were equally good. The 3 kobolds had dropped 2 coppers and some stone materials. In God's domain, only monsters level 3 and above would drop skill books and bronze equipment. Although the chance was only 10,000 to 1, it was still enough to cause players to go on wild goose chases. Currently, bronze equipment was very valuable, even more so were skill books. With these enticements here, there would be many experts who would come forth, even if there was some danger involved. After taking a few glances, Shifeng turned and left towards the inner parts of the Dark Moon Valley. The other party members who were new to the Dark Moon Valley were very nervous. It was especially true when they saw the level 4 monsters scattered throughout the entire area. Their breaths became slightly hurried. However, Blackie was extremely calm when he saw these level 4 kobolds. After all, he had previously killed hundreds of them. He did not seem panicked, unlike the other party members. He simply followed Shifeng, entering the deeper regions of the valley. As for the elite parties, they could not help but be shocked when they saw Shifeng's party enter deep into the valley. They had never imagined the newcomer party would have such courage. There were very few players currently present in Dark Moon Valley. It had yet to be completely developed, so there were a lot of kobolds in the middle of the valley. The deeper one headed towards the center, the greater the number of kobolds. There would even be groups that consisted of 10 or more kobolds. Grinding monsters there was just too dangerous. The lowest number of kobolds they had to face was at least 4 or 5. It was not worth risking an unwarranted death. Unfortunately, these people did not know Shifeng was more insane than they previously thought. If you want to read more chapters, please visit tnew.t experience faster update speed. Shifeng did not just enter the deeper regions of the valley. Instead, he went towards the core of the Dark Moon Valley. There was a good location to grind monsters there. Not only was there a large number of monsters, but their respawn rate was quick as well. Most importantly, the drop rate therefore was high. Regarding understanding, Shifeng was like the local god of the area when it came to the Dark Moon Valley. Be it the location of the monsters, the number of monsters available, or their respawn time, Shifeng had spent countless hours researching in his previous life. His goal at that time was to increase the grinding speed of his party, all to improve his position within Shadow. Life was truly fascinating. Shifeng's sacrifice towards Shadow in his previous life had currently turned around to help himself instead. It could increase his own party's level more quickly, while at the same time guaranteeing him a steady supply of ore. Moving along the path of broken rocks, groups of 4 or 5 level 4 kobolds would occasionally appear. However, it was just a small matter with the equipment of Shifeng's party. Looking at the party's guardian knight, Kola, be it with HP or defense, he could easily tank 4 kobolds at the same time. The healer, Drowsy Sloth, could maintain Kola's HP above 80% without wasting much effort. If Kola had let a monster past, then Lonely Snow would go up and push it back. As for the others, they would fervently deal damage. A simple sword strike from Sherfong could already deal over 100 damage, whereas Blackie's dark arrows could each deal 88 damage. The fight could not get any easier than this. Within moments, the 5 kobolds were all dealt with. Compared to the elite party outside, Sherfeng's party was stronger by several folds. Sherfong simply picked up the stone materials or that dropped, then continuing deeper into the Dark Moon Valley. After spending over an hour moving forward, Sherfeng's party had finally arrived in front of a mountain. The massive mountain was hundreds of meters in height. Kobolds no longer filled the area surrounding the mountain. Wandering gnomes had replaced them. These wandering gnomes each held a small shovel in their hands, using it to dig into the rock wall of the mountain. There were also quite a few gnome overseers that inspected the surrounding areas with a whip in hand. "Brother Fong, the monsters here are just too numerous. Are we really going to grind here?" Blackie's heart shook slightly when he took a look around. He discovered hundreds of wandering gnomes around the vast mountain. There was even a few level 5 gnome overseers. Compared to the groups of over 10 kobolds outside, this place was a literal battlefield. Kola also gulped down a mouthful of saliva, worriedly saying, "Party leader, I'm not trying to boast, but tanking 6 or 7 of them is my limit. I really can't manage this many monsters." It wasn't just Blackie or Kola. The others, as well, were apprehensive. Wandering gnomes occupied the entire mountain, and these gnomes were very close to each other. As long as they made a mistake while luring, then they would have to face off against hundreds of level 4 monsters. Such a large number of monsters was much scarier than the Lord rank felt. "I know you guys can't fend all of them off. However, whoever said about letting any of you tank hundreds of gnomes?" Sherfong rolled his eyes at his party members. He was extremely clear regarding the party's standards. Facing off against 10 gnomes at the same time was nearly their limit, so how could they deal with hundreds at the same time? Even a level 10 player would be finished when met with hundreds if level 4 monsters. However, wasn't there a good saying that stated, "If you can't outfight them, outrun them"? Sherfeng's agility had reached 30 points. Including the bronze shoes he had, his movement speed had exceeded the wandering gnomes by at least 4 points. He could easily kite the gnomes and let Blackie use the AoE skill Hellflame. The efficiency of grinding in such a way was several times greater than that of killing individually. Following which, Sherfong told everyone about his plan. He needed Blackie to get the timing right, maximizing the effect of Hellflame. As for the others, they were responsible for taking out the gnomes with low HP. When Sherfong had chosen his position, he grabbed a handful of stones and rushed towards the nearby gnome overseer. Just as Sherfong approached the 20-yard distance, the overseer had started yelling loudly. Its screams attracted the attention of many of the surrounding wandering gnomes. Sherfong waited first for a moment, avoiding the whip of the gnome overseer and allowing the wandering gnomes to continuously gather. When about 30 gnomes had gathered, Sherfong turned around and ran in the opposite direction. Afterward, he threw a small stone that struck another gnome overseer. The overseer who was struck loudly bellowed, bringing along over 20 of its brethren and rushing at Sherfong. Within moments, Sherfong had lured over 60 monsters. However, Sherfong was not yet satisfied. He started circling the mountain as he lured monsters, and within 5 minutes, there were hundreds of wandering gnomes and more than 10 gnome overseers chasing behind him with all their might. Unfortunately for them, Sherfeng's equipment was just too good. His speed was 30% greater when compared to the gnomes. Including Sherfeng's extraordinary techniques and control over his body, he was able to toy with the gnomes whichever way he wanted. "Blackie, get ready to cast," Sherfong reminded. "All right." Blackie was extremely excited. This was his first time using AoE magic, so he did not know what kind of effects it would have. Subsequently, Blackie's fingers started gesturing in midair. Brilliant magical seals started appearing, forming into a dazzling magic circle that gave off a peerless aura. As Blackie spat out the last syllable, the land shook. Jade-green flames rushed to the sky, devouring the entire gnome army. A field of damages over 100 had appeared. Within 5 seconds, every gnome chasing after Sherfong received over 200 damage, their remaining HP less than half. However, the target of these gnomes had also changed. They no longer went after Sherfong, but Blackie instead. Sherfong abruptly stopped. He pulled out the abyssal blade and rushed forward. Thundering Flash! Not only did the level 4 Thundering Flash have a low cooldown, but its attack range also increased to 15 by 3 yards. It had nearly covered the entire gnome army. 3 streaks of thunder flew past the gnome army, creating 3 damages of over 120 points to every gnome. The attack had completely devoured the remaining HP of the gnomes. As for the low HP ones that remained, they were quickly held back by Cola. Lonely Snow then rushed forward and used a whirlwind slash, thoroughly ending the remaining gnomes. The hundreds of gnomes had been wiped out, leaving behind a floor covered with items. Meanwhile, everyone's experience madly rose. EXP of over 10 points appeared one after the other, dazzling everyone's eyes.
What?
Blackie had risen to level 3.
This is too awesome!
Blackie roared in exhilaration. This is only the beginning. They will still respawn in a moment. Sherfong laughed. Let's quickly pick up the drops. Suddenly, everyone started busying themselves. Even with 6 people retrieving the drops, the loot of hundreds of gnomes still required them to spend a lot of time doing so. However, moments after they started collecting, a gnome that piloted a gigantic robot suddenly appeared. The gnome's face was crimson red. It immediately rushed towards Sherfeng's party with unparalleled rage.
Not good.
It's the hazard gnome.
Everyone spread out.
Sherfong shouted the moment he laid eyes on the gigantic robot. The moment everyone saw the giant robot piloted by a midget gnome, they instinctively knew he was something very dangerous. After hearing Sherfeng's reminder, they ignored the loot on the ground and immediately ran towards the forest without a shred of hesitation. Naturally, Sherfong would not stay behind either. The hazard gnome was a very dangerous monster. It was especially true when he first made his appearance. He was even stronger than Werewolf felt with its Death Berserk activated. Hazard Gnome Special Elite. Level 5. HP 1600/1600. There was a very small chance for the Hazard Gnome to appear after clearing out the wandering gnomes and gnome overseers. However, his appearance also signified the start of a player's nightmare. There was a saying in God's domain that warns people not to look down on gnomes just because they were midgets. If they were enraged, they could easily extinguish your life at any given moment. In his previous life, Sherfong met the hazard gnome once before. At that time, he was with an elite party who was grinding for ore. After killing the gnomes, the hazard gnome appeared. They did not imagine they would meet a special elite, so they had all excitedly rushed at him. However, the situation ended up in a tragedy for the 20-man party. The hazard gnome's 1600 HP must not be taken lightly. His defense was an abnormality, capable of reducing 80% of the damage he received. A level 4 berserker using an axe could only take 2 HP from the gnome. On the other hand, the hazard gnome's attacks were even more powerful. Everyone would get a free trip back to the city after he fired a burst of bullets. Although Sherfeng's party had tried their best to run away, the hazard gnome's hatred for their evil deeds was clearly implacable. The rockets on the robot's back suddenly ignited. The steel machine that was over 3 meters tall rushed at high speed towards Sherfeng's party. While being chased, Blackie attacked with his dark arrow as he ran. Although the arrow had struck the hazard gnome, it had only caused a meager -4 damage. Blackie's eyes widened when he saw the damage. He said in a dumbstruck manner, disgusting. If the robot wasn't protecting this gnome, I could one-shot him anytime. Don't mind it for now and focus on running. Pay attention to dodging the bullets. As long as we are 1,200 yards away from the mountain, the hazard gnome will return. Sherfong never thought, just after a lecture from him, Blackie's skill would improve to the degree of being able to hit his target while moving. However, fighting head-on with the hazard gnome would be very foolish. Blackie understood Sherfeng's intentions. He turned around and started chanting Evil Whip, binding the pursuing hazard gnome with 5 thorns and greatly reducing the gnome's speed. With this, everyone managed to gain quite a distance from the gnome. When the hazard gnome broke free from the 5 thorns, high damages of -23, -24, -23, -23, -24 suddenly appeared on his head. His HP had turned to 1479 within an instant. The damage caused by the evil whip was just ridiculous. Blackie was shocked. Before, his level 3 dark arrow had only dealt -4 damage. On the other hand, the evil whip had caused over 100 damage total. The difference between them was just too great. Did the hazard gnome have that kind of fetish? Shifeng saw hope when the hazard gnome's HP suddenly fell by a portion. The hazard gnome did not have any immunity towards plant-based attacks. Shifeng immediately commanded, "Everybody stop running. Cola, get the hazard gnome's hatred and let his back face toward the group. The others attack and mind your positions. As long as the hazard gnome lifts up his gun, immediately dodge the muzzle. Blackie, attack immediately after Evil Whip's CD finishes. We have a chance to get rid of him." Whether they would live or die before they ran out of the 1,200-yard mark was an uncertainty.
So, why not fight it out?
Who knows, they might even be able to get rid of this hazard gnome. In Shifeng's previous life, there were no players who killed the hazard gnome before.
If they were to kill him now, something good might drop.
Currently, the hazard gnome's hatred was targeted towards Blackie. However, Lonely Snow was a step ahead of the gnome, using charge on him. He used a whirlwind slash on the gnome, causing 3 points of damage. Although the damage was low, the momentary fainted state it caused gave Cola a chance to use Divine Strike, followed by Punishment. The 2 attacks caused -3, -2 damage, and the additional hatred they attracted had the hazard gnome locked onto Cola. The hazard gnome extended the electric saw on the robot's right arm, violently slashing at Cola. Cola blocked the attack with his shield. His body retreated 3 steps backward and a damage of -147 appearing above his head. Cola was shocked. When the next attack from the electric saw came, he hurriedly dodged and rolled to the side, avoiding the attack completely. Drowsy Sloth immediately healed Cola twice, returning close to 100 HP to Cola. Such fierce damage, Lonely Snow was shocked as well. He no longer dared to stay, turning around and running more than 10 yards away from the gnome. He would definitely die, even if he were only struck once by the electric saw. On the other hand, Shifeng was not afraid of him. He immediately arrived at the hazard gnome's back, using out a series of skills, Thundering Flash, Double Chop, and Chop. The occasional critical hit would also cause -16 damage. Compared to the others, Shifeng's damage was already very high. However, the hazard gnome only gave a look of contempt towards Shifeng's attacks. He continued using his electric saw to attack Cola. A series of fierce attacks had forced Cola to constantly retreat backward. His HP was continuously falling as well. Behind, Drowsy Sloth's healing could not keep up with the damage Cola was receiving. He could only watch as Cola inched closer to death. At the most crucial moment, Shifeng used Abyssal Bind. 9 pitch-black chains bound the hazard gnome, giving Cola a breather. Within the 3 seconds the hazard gnome had only lost 7% of his HP after being barraged by everyone's attacks. The total damage the party dealt was not even the equivalent of a single evil whip from Blackie. When the 3 seconds had ended, the hazard gnome regained his freedom. The greenskin gnome revealed a mocking smile on his face, his tiny hands moving around and manipulating buttons. The robot's arm holding the electric saw made a roundabout slash, creating a beautiful arc. Shifeng's entire person was sent flying. He smashed into a tree and lost 286 HP. Cola rushed up in a hurry, his HP having recovered by more than half. He used Divine Strike and Punishment once again, trying to pull back the hazard gnome's hatred. However, the hazard gnome had actually ignored Cola. Instead, he lifted the gun in his left hand, aimed it and fired a burst of bullets at Shifeng. A barrage of densely packed bullets flew toward Shifeng. However, Shifeng had yet to land after being sent flying, so it was impossible to dodge the bullets.
Phantom kill.
Shifeng's doppelganger instantly appeared before him. The doppelganger waved his blade, continuously blocking the bullets. Meanwhile, Shifeng had already activated gravity liberation. He jumped up to a treetop, avoiding the attack range of the hazard gnome. However, his doppelganger had already been killed. After finishing a cartridge of bullets, the hazard gnome started changing magazines. Afterward, he continued to rush at Shifeng. Everyone else could only continue attacking, shaving away the hazard gnome's HP bit by bit. However, Shifeng was not easy to hit after he activated gravity liberation. Shifeng also used the trees for protection. He was barely dodging the flying bullets as he continued kiting the gnome. As for Blackie, he would immediately use Evil Whip as soon as it was ready. The hazard gnome's HP continuously fell, 64%, 50%, 30%, 20%, 10%. When only 10% of the hazard gnome's HP remained, the gnome suddenly jumped out of the metallic machine. He wore a pair of rocket boots and started to escape. It can't be. Monsters can actually escape? Blackie watched as the hazard gnome ran, with extreme speed, to a location without people. The others were also shocked. They never imagined the gnome would have such a high intelligence. He ran the moment he knew he could not win the fight. We can't let him escape. We will have fought for nothing otherwise. Cola immediately chased after the gnome. He had been bullied by the hazard gnome just a moment ago, so his heart was currently filled with anger. How could he let the hazard gnome escape after having taken advantage of them? You want to escape? Not a chance. Shifeng chased after him with Wind Blade. However, the hazard gnome was unperturbed. He sent Shifeng a mocking expression before pressing a button on his waist. The rocket boots spewed out large amounts of flames, ready to fly away. TL notes. 1. Within 3 seconds, the effective duration of Abyssal Bind. The hazard gnome's shameless rocket boots shocked everyone. They had never seen a monster that was so good at escaping before. Its human-like expressions and actions were completely different from NPCs. The hazard gnome was like a person pretending to be an NPC. 2 streaks of crimson flame flared, slowly lifting the hazard gnome into the air. Unwillingness filled everyone's hearts. However, they could no longer stop it, but only watch the hazard gnome flee with their own eyes. The mages in the party were over 40 yards away from the hazard gnome. Lonely Snow as well was over 30 yards apart from it. It was not within the range of charge. Also, the faint effect of charge would become ineffective because the target was floating in midair. Only the movement speed increase would take effect. Currently, only Shifeng was close to the hazard gnome. He was only 15 yards away from it. However, Shifeng did not have any range attacks. Even if he chased after it, the hazard gnome would raise over 20 yards from the ground by the time he arrived. In the end, Shifeng would only watch the hazard gnome escape. 9 Dragon Slash. Shifeng knew he could not catch up. He waved the abyssal blade, shrouded in black mist, in his hand. Within an instant, 9 streaks of black mist shot towards the hazard gnome. Shifeng was not willing to allow such a smart hazard gnome leave. Initially, Shifeng only thought of the hazard gnome as an average special elite. He had never imagined the gnome to be so much like a player. Throughout his 10 years of playing God's Domain, Shifeng rarely saw such intelligent gnomes. The main god system wouldn't simply bestow a small monster with high intelligence. Such bestowals usually had a deeper meaning behind them. For example, those human heroes or legendary beings were all great characters. Their existences caused people to shudder. Although the intelligence of this hazard gnome did not reach the level of those heroes or legendary beings, he was still much smarter than a boss monster. There might even be unimaginable gains by killing it. Currently, the hazard gnome's displayed information changed. He suddenly became Arcus Maddox. Arcus Maddox Lord Rank. Level 5. HP 600/600. Shifeng felt a sense of familiarity when he saw this name. It seems that he had heard of it before, yet he could not recall anything about it. However, the gnome only had 600 HP. Shifeng was confident he could kill the gnome with the 9 Dragon Slash. Just when the 9 sword shadows were about to pierce Arcus Maddox, the gnome took out a few steel balls from his small bag. He threw the balls at the phantoms of the abyssal blade. Brilliant sparks flared up the moment the two attacks came into contact. On. A series of explosions forced the phantoms of the abyssal blade back. Just when the phantoms were prepared to attack Arcus Maddox once more, he immediately flew over 30 yards away. Meanwhile, the 9 phantoms of the abyssal blade could only attack targets within 30 yards of its reach. Sherfong could only watch helplessly as Arcus Maddox escaped.
Crap! How could there be such a monster? His escaping ability is just a bug one.
Blackie stared at the fleeing Arcus Maddox as he cursed. Cola was grinding his teeth in hatred as well, sending a few punches towards a nearby tree. The other party members felt displeasure also. Everyone fought long and hard against this elite monster. However, just when they were about to reap the rewards of their efforts, their prize grew wings and flew away. Was there anything more depressing? Brother Fong, let's continue chasing it. Blackie discovered that the gnome's movement speed was not fast. Also, there should be a limited amount of fuel powering that pair of boots. Who knows, the gnome might land just after a while. Forget it. Let's continue grinding gnomes. Sherfong shook his head. If they could chase the gnome, Sherfong would have long since chased after it. However, the gnome's rocket boots were just too powerful. It was titled as one of God's domain's godly escape tools. Currently, the boots had just been activated. Its speed would abruptly increase in a moment and the gnome would disappear in the blink of an eye. It would be an impossible task if they wished to find the gnome. As expected, the flames gushing out from the rocket boots greatly increased after a moment. Show. Arcus Maddox disappeared from the air, unable to be seen anymore. Best not let us meet again. You can dream of escaping the next time. Blackie said in an unfortunate tone as he looked towards the spot where Arcus Maddox had disappeared. In his heart, Sherfong felt that it was a pity to let the gnome go. However, it would no longer be dangerous when they grinded on wandering gnomes from now on. After this experience, the hazard gnome most likely would not show himself ever again. Let's go, continue grinding on the wandering gnomes. Sherfong turned around and said to his party. Brother Fong, you're still the best. How could I not think of it? If we killed all of this bastard's kinsmen, we'll see if he doesn't show up again. Blackie laughingly said. Sherfong was speechless. He turned around and left, no longer paying any attention to the fantasizing Blackie. Suddenly, Sherfong stopped his feet in shock. Damn, our luck really is too poor. I never thought that Arcus Maddox would actually appear here, and he was also a level 5 hazard gnome. Sherfong tightly clenched his fists, his brows wrinkled. It was the first time he became so enraged. When everyone looked at Sherfeng's wrathful expression, they could faintly feel the surroundings become chilly. They could not help but retreat a step, their foreheads covered in a cold sweat. Before, they felt Sherfong was a calm and easygoing person. Never would they have imagined Sherfong would become so terrifying after becoming angry. The forest around them no longer seemed lively but more like a frozen hell, silent, cold, and dark. Brother Fong. Are you all right? Blackie carefully asked. He was shocked. Sherfong was completely different from when he was mad or arguing with others. It was the first time Blackie saw Sherfong enraged to such a degree. Oh, it's nothing. Sherfong reacted, replying with a smile. He stored back the dense killing intent into his heart. Such killing intent was slowly honed throughout the years Sherfong had played God's domain. Compared to the tyrant bear Cola of 10 years in the future, there was nothing special about Sherfeng's killing intent. However, at present, it was considered unbearable for Blackie and the others. Sherfong finally recalled the name of Arcus Maddox. Arcus Maddox was a famous Grandmaster engineer within God's domain. 3 years after Arcus Maddox shocked the nation by creating the Sky Fortress, Twin Snake Ring, he had gone on to establish the Gnome Empire. With it, the new update Emergence of the New World also activated. At that time, countless superguilds started expeditions towards the fortress, Twin Snake Ring. However, all of them were annihilated, and Arcus Maddox was the cause of such a result. On the other hand, Shifeng was completely unaware of a great character had appeared right before his eyes. He also lost the chance to kill Arcus Maddox, so how could Shifeng not be enraged? Party leader, there's a box here. Did it drop from Arcus Maddox during the explosions? Gluttonous Mouse, who had been silent all this while, asked as he picked up a small metallic box from the grass. Shifeng received the box and took a look at it. He discovered the words Arcus Maddox carved onto the metallic box. Shortly after Shifeng opened the box, he said suddenly with a laugh, "Great. Good job, Mouse. With this, we didn't fight for nothing after all." When the group saw Shifeng in a happy mood, they knew the item must be very precious, as common items were nothing in Shifeng's eyes. As to wanting the item for themselves, none of them ever had such thoughts. They had long since made Shifeng their idol, and being able to aid their idol naturally made them happy. "Let's do it this way. You guys stay here to grind and level up. I still have something that needs to be done. Notify me when you have all reached level 4. Shifeng kept the metallic box and hastily made the arrangements. Nobody could help him with the following matter. Only Shifeng was able to proceed. Everyone felt reluctant when they heard Shifeng's command. However, hearing Shifeng have plans for them after they reached level 4, their anticipation grew as they abided Shifeng's arrangements. Subsequently, Shifeng left the deeper regions of the Dark Moon Valley. The party had Blackie's AoE skill. Killing 7 or 8 gnomes at a time was no problem at all, and their leveling speed was at least 2 or 3 times faster than the other parties. On the other hand, what Shifeng needed to do was to utilize this metallic box, and to forward the first step of his plans in God's domain. TL notes: 1. Bug, a fault in the game that causes unexpected results when an action is carried out within the game. After leaving the Dark Moon Valley, Shifeng rushed towards Scarlet Lake. He had also activated gravity liberation to save more time. The players on their way to the Dark Moon Valley saw Shifeng speeding past them like a gale of wind. His speed was shockingly fast and his figure was just a blur. Who is that person? Which assassin is he? His speed is so fast. No, look at his waist. That's a sword hanging there, not a dagger. He should be a swordsman. Crap. Are the current swordsmen that OP? The widely spread rumor on the forum stated that a mysterious swordsman killed the mayor of Red Leaf Town. There was also a powerful swordsman at the Deathly Forest that received an invitation from the Snow Goddess. I would have played as a swordsman if I had known about this earlier. Say, do you think they're the same person? Definitely not. I saw the swordsman that killed the mayor. That male swordsman was as big as a black bear. His arms alone were thicker than our thighs. He had forcefully killed that level 15 mayor. The players passing by started a discussion as they watched Shifeng depart. They were inwardly speechless towards the swordsman job. They should have played as swordsmen if there was such a powerful job. However, it was too late now. Shifeng might have laughed it off if he had known their thoughts. There was no strongest job in God's domain, only the strongest player. Shifeng ran for over 2 hours through the vast plains. He activated gravity liberation over tens of times, escaping the pursuit of high-leveled monsters. He passed through the level 6 map, Wolfman's Ruins, and the level 8 map, Oro Fort, before arriving in the level 10 area, Scarlet Lake. Scarlet Lake was the playground of level 10 water elementals and little fishmen. Watching from a high location, Shifeng could see groups of little fishmen patrolling. The closer it was to the Scarlet Lake, the more there were of little fishmen. The central region of the Scarlet Lake was the nest of the little fishmen, whereas annoying water elementals filled the water of the lake. Due to the densely packed and large number of monsters in the Scarlet Lake, the little fishman's curse skill was extremely horrendous. It could absorb a player's attributes and turned it into their own. The longer they fought, the stronger they would become. They were extremely hard to kill. Including the fact that there were no quests here, there were rarely any players who would willingly come here to level up. However, Shifeng had to enter into the deeper regions of the Scarlet Lake. The metal box dropped by Arcus Maddox was extremely precious. If Arcus Maddox were to know it fell into Shifeng's hands, he would most likely bleed out in rage. There was a treasure map inside the box, and the treasure it hid was located at Scarlet Lake. Shifeng had played God's Domain for over 10 years now. He had done extensive research regarding the history of God's Domain. He truly did not think Arcus Maddox would have this treasure map. It was the record of a heaven-shaking secret. 900 years ago, alchemy master Molotov had created an item with all his effort. Wars were waged between the large countries in God's Domain for this item. There were over 10 heroic figures that fought over it. However, this item became lost in the end, its whereabouts unknown. It had become an unsolved mystery in God's Domain. Meanwhile, the treasure map in Shifeng's hands, by chance, recorded the location of this item. This item was the Philosopher's Stone. It was a sacred item for alchemy. If alchemists could obtain the Philosopher's Stone, then they would have the ability to transform stone into gold, amassing immense wealth. They would even be able to revive the dead, breaking the alchemy law of equivalent exchange. Who would have thought such a sacred item would be placed in such an unremarkable location as Scarlet Lake? However, the Scarlet Lake was still a dangerous place for Shifeng. After all was said, there was still a gap of 8 levels between Shifeng and the monsters here. With the suppression due to levels, Shifeng was not an opponent for the level 10 monsters, not to mention the attribute-stealing little fishmen. However, Shifeng could not help but take the risk. The earlier he obtained the Philosopher's Stone, the earlier his heart could be at ease. If he waited until he was level 7 or 8, someone else might claim the item. He wouldn't even be able to feel regret when that time came. Shifeng took out the metal box from his bag, carefully taking out the treasure map within it. He started researching it in detail. The marking on the treasure map was very clear. The treasure was located directly below the little fishman's nest. However, how would Shifeng be able to circle around all these little fishmen? The problem with the water elementals also needed to be solved. Although water elementals had low HP, they had a 60% immunity to physical attacks. They also had a movement speed reduction skill, so they were a headache for melee players. After observing for half an hour, Shifeng discovered that the little fishmen were not always on patrol. They would eventually take a break. Also, these little fishmen were only active by the lake's shores. They hardly ever entered the water, because once they entered it, their movement speed would sharply reduce by 60%. Shifeng could use this short rest period to rush into the lake, and once he was in it, the little fishmen would not be able to chase after him. As for the water elementals under the water, Shifeng could use the doppelganger of Phantom Kill to lure them away. Then, he could swim to the cavern below the little fishman's nest. If Shifeng did not operate through his plan properly, he would definitely die. If he died, his losses would not be minor. It was not the experience loss that was a problem, however. With his advantage as a reincarnated person, Shifeng could quickly recuperate the experience he lost. Only, he would be sent back to the town after dying once, and the time he would waste by returning here was just too much. 10 more seconds. Shifeng watched the patrolling little fishmen, his heart estimating the time for him to sprint out. Time passed second after second. A group of patrolling fishmen watched their surroundings. After discovering nothing out of the ordinary, they entered a small wooden hut by the lake to rest, emptying the land by the lake. With all his might, Shifeng dashed towards the shore. When Shifeng was about 30 yards away from the lake, another group of patrolling fishmen discovered Shifeng. They immediately sounded out an alarm, their hands wielding short swords as they rushed toward Shifeng. When faced with 4 level 10 little fishmen, as powerful as Shifeng was, he was not their match. Shifeng's only hope was to jump into the water. However, the little fishmen were very quick, taking only a short moment to catch up to Shifeng. They waved their short swords, slashing them at Shifeng's back. Shifeng knew he could not outrun the fishmen. He turned around and used Abyssal Bind on one of them, then continued by using Parry to block another one of his attackers. As a result, Shifeng stopped the other little fishmen from moving forward. Using the power behind the fishman's attack, Shifeng managed to pull away a distance of over 3 yards. He activated gravity liberation and then jumped onto the lake. However, the other little fishmen were quick to catch up, jumping into the lake after Shifeng as well. Plop! Four little fishmen fell into the water. Shifeng, however, was madly running above the lake's surface. Walking on water was a skill that could only be activated after agility reached 80 points. However, Shifeng had the ring of gravity. As a result, his body had reached a state of near weightlessness after activating gravity liberation. Including his agility that was over 30 points, he too could move on the water's surface. His speed would not be reduced by the water. In a few moments, Shifeng had shaken off the unyielding little fishmen. He ran to a location not far from the little fishman's nest, diving into the water. Just after entering the water, Shifeng discovered a cavern that was surrounded by a lot of water elementals. The water elementals were encircling around the cavern as if they were protecting something. Water Elemental Common Monster. Level 10. HP 750/750. Shifeng used Phantom Kill. His doppelganger swam over, luring the water elementals. Just as Shifeng planned, a group of water elementals had discovered the doppelganger. One after another, they chased after the doppelganger. Meanwhile, the doppelganger swam upwards. Although the water elementals had high movement speed underwater, it was an entirely different story when they were above ground. They were the opposite of the little fishmen, becoming extremely slow once they reached the shore. With the water elementals lured away by his doppelganger, Shifeng took the chance to quickly swim towards the cavern. Before Shifeng even reached the cavern, the system notified him of the death of his doppelganger. The doppelganger had only earned Shifeng over 20 seconds. After killing the doppelganger, the water elementals discovered an intruder near the cavern. They all hurriedly swam back to the cavern entrance. After discovering Shifeng, the speed of these water elementals increased by a fold as they sped toward Shifeng. Above the scarlet-colored lake, the speeding water elementals created waves of water that struck at the little fishman's nest. Waves that were as tall as a person enveloped the entire nest, destroying many of the small wooden huts on it. The hundreds of little fishmen inside the nest entered a frenzy. They screamed and bellowed, each of them holding weapons as they jumped into the water and swam towards the cavern below the nest. Dual-layered protection? Shifeng took a look behind him, shocked. As if hundreds of water elementals were not enough, now there were also hundreds of little fishmen following behind. With this amount, even 2 or 3 elite groups of players would not amount to anything. Shifeng had no choice but to increase his speed and rush into the cave. There was still a thread of hope for survival. However, Shifeng's speed underwater was very slow. It was incomparable to the druids who had their seal transformation, where their movement speed was increased by 50% when moving underwater. Instead, Shifeng's movement speed was reduced by 50%. Soon, Shifeng was just 50 yards away from the cavern's entrance. However, the enraged water elementals approached Shifeng as if they were flying, their distance between Shifeng shortening quickly. 42 yards. 28 yards. 20 yards. 10 yards. Just when Shifeng was only 5 yards away from the cavern entrance, the water elementals had caught up with Shifeng. They waved their gigantic icy fists towards Shifeng's head. The attacks from water elementals carried a freezing effect that reduced movement speed. As long as they hit Shifeng, the water elementals would cling to him till death. Shifeng hurriedly spun around and used parry, blocking the fist of the first water elemental. Using the water elemental's immense strength, Shifeng's body retreated backward by quite a distance. However, the remaining water elementals also rushed at him. It seems I'll be going back to town. Shifeng looked at the hundreds of water elementals in front of him, feeling powerless. Just when Shifeng was about to give up, he had floated into the cavern. Inside, he saw a human-shaped ghost roaming about. It was roughly 30 yards away from Shifeng. Shifeng gave caution to the wind. If he had to die, then he would die trying. At the very least, he could obtain a little more information for future preparations. Hence, Shifeng used Wind Blade, his speed increasing by a large leap. Like a gale, Shifeng swept through the water and rushed to the shore of the cavern, escaping the clutches of the water elementals just in the nick of time. The moment the water elementals left the water, their speed was sharply reduced. They could not catch up to Shifeng's mad dash at all. After leaving the water, Shifeng quickly rushed towards the human-shaped ghost. The moment the abyssal blade was about to slash across the ghost's neck, Shifeng suddenly discovered the half-transparent ghost did not actively attack him. Shifeng abruptly turned the tip of his sword away, the blade sliding past the ghost's side. It did not attract the ghost's hatred. Close one, Shifeng felt cold sweat down his back when he looked at the ghost's information. Brave one Floyda. High Lord. Level 25. HP 360, 000/360, 000. If Shifeng had attacked this brave one and attracted his hatred, even if he had 100 lives, he would still end up dead. Within God's domain, brave ones were only second to heroes regarding strength. Their position within a kingdom was even higher than that of a marquis and was second only to a duke. Even if such a great character had died and turned into a ghost, he was still a monster of the great lord rank. He was a tyrant amongst monsters. Without 100 men group of elite players, it was impossible to kill off this ghost. Could he be the guardian of this place? Shifeng looked at the brave one, Floyd, silently guessing in his heart. There were usually guards posted around places with treasure. As for the little fishmen and water elementals outside, they could be considered, at most, as guard dogs. They were unfit to guard an important treasure. Shifeng did not dare to stay any longer. After all, there was still a large group of monsters chasing after him. He hurriedly ran towards the inner regions of the cavern. The cavern was very large. There was a flight of stairs that led straight into the depths of the cavern, and following it down ought to lead Shifeng to the Philosopher's Stone. When Shifeng was right before the stairs, a sea of water elementals and little fishmen had rushed at him. It was as if they had an undying grudge against him. You lower life forms dare to sully this divine place? Prepare to receive divine punishment. Floyd's gaze suddenly erupted in rage, pulling out a dark golden greatsword from his back. The sword gave out a surge of evil that made it seem as if it were the master of the world. When Floyd raised the greatsword, the surrounding air started becoming heavy, following which, Floyd gave out a loud bellow as his arms swung the greatsword with all their might. A strong wind, followed by a sword flash, swept through all the water elementals and little fishmen. Each and every one of the monsters turned into ash, and the cavern's entrance instantly transformed into a pile of rubble. Strong! Shifeng exclaimed in shock. He had sorely underestimated the strength of a brave one. Floyd's single sword could easily wipe out 100 men group of level 30 elite players. A 300 men group might be needed to even have a fighting chance. It was unexpected that the water elementals and little fishmen did not even have the right to become guard dogs. They were all annihilated in an instant. Shifeng wiped away the cold sweat on his forehead. Luckily, he was a human and not a lower life form. Otherwise, his outcome would be similar to those water elementals and little fishmen. This place is truly vicious. I guess I can only go downward now. Shifeng looked at the collapsed entrance. Not even an earthworm could find a way through the debris. The stairs that led down were spiral-shaped. The rocky walls surrounding it were also enchanted with a kind of light-based magic, brightening the entire stairwell. However, this stairwell was extremely long. Fortunately, there were no dangers here. After walking for an entire half an hour, Shifeng finally arrived at the end of the stairwell, at the beginning of a wide and spacious hall. The hall was about the size of an entire football field, and it looked similar to a shrine of sorts. Made out of gold and jade, the two sides of the hall were carved with an abundance of illustrations and texts. There was also an altar at the deepest part of the shrine. Above the altar was a treasure chest made of pure gold. On each side of the treasure chest, there were two statues made of gold, both of them holding a greatsword in their hands. System: player has discovered the Sun Temple. Sun Temple? It was the first time Shifeng had heard this name. In his previous life, there was no information on the Sun Temple. It might have been because no player had activated it before, so there was no information about it on the official website. However, looking at the situation, it should be very dangerous. However, Shifeng couldn't care less about it as he walked towards the golden altar. His target was the Philosopher's Stone, and the golden chest before his eyes should be holding the item. The moment Shifeng stepped onto the altar, he clearly felt a chill permeating his body. The chilliness came from the two gigantic golden statues. Shifeng did not know what sort of consequences there would be if he continued onwards to retrieve the Philosopher's Stone. However, he no longer had any choice. The cavern's entrance had already been sealed off, so he could only decide after grabbing the Philosopher's Stone. Shifeng slowly opened the golden treasure chest. Golden rays of light leaked out from the chest, illuminating the entire temple. Subsequently, the golden rays started to fade, revealing 3 items inside the chest. Shifeng pocketed the items with zero hesitation. Crap, how could the Philosopher's Stone end up in such a state? Shifeng looked at the thumb-sized blood-red stone, feeling extremely disappointed. Philosopher's Stone damaged. Epic rank special item dropped after death. A sacred item for alchemy, the Philosopher's Stone can be used to turn stone into gold, revive the dead, and has many more unfathomable uses. However, the Philosopher's Stone was damaged and broken into 5 pieces by the Sword Emperor, Knight. Nevertheless, the Philosopher's Stone possesses immense strength. As long as the 5 pieces are gathered, it will be able to recover all of its strength. Active effect: due to being damaged, the Philosopher's Stone possesses less than 1/10 of its original strength. It is only possible to use it for alchemy conversion and elemental refinement. Although the effects were greatly reduced, Shifeng was still satisfied with it. These 2 abilities would enable Shifeng to accomplish a lot. As for the remaining 2 items, one of them was the Golden Greatsword, a level 10 fine-gold weapon. The other item was an instantaneous movement magic scroll. A great treasure indeed. Shifeng looked at the Golden Greatsword in his hands with extreme excitement. Aside from magic weapons, it was the best item a level 10 player could have. If a level 10 player were to equip this greatsword, they could definitely become invincible amongst players of the same level. At this moment the 2 statues by the side shook. Their eyes released a red glow, locking their sights on Shifeng. Shifeng used the instantaneous movement magic scroll without hesitation. Golden-colored magical seals suddenly wrapped around Shifeng. The spell on the magic scroll had a cast time of 3 seconds, and it was capable of sending the player to a selected location. This magic scroll was extremely precious. Although there were only a few copies of it in the entire God's domain, dying in this place was a much greater loss to Shifeng. Just as Shifeng was about to be slashed by the golden statues, he vanished from the temple.